Okay. All right. SpoKen. I guess you're running. I don't know if it's a new um,
Whoa, you're kind of breaking up.
argument or a revamped argument, but I guess you're kind of got the tail end of it. Was it you running with me here from you before I kind
Oh,
of dwelled into it?
dude, you sound really glitchy. I don't know if that's
Creationist.
just me. Is
One
that
sec.
just
One sec.
me?
One sec.
Okay.
Hello.
Hang out 1 second, okay?
It sounds all right now.
Is it better?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
sounds
fine.
fine.
Okay. Okay. So sorry about that. So what I was saying was, I guess you were running some kind of new or improved argument with Cliff and a few other people on creationism, and I wanted to hear it from you because I didn't know exactly what was the actual claim you were making or
Oh,
the argument.
shit.
So I figured I'd give you a chance to kind of run it with us.
Okay. I noticed because people now I'm just gonna if you don't allow me to, I'm gonna talk a little bit. People I guess are classifying it as a creationist argument. I'm not even posing such a thing. I'm actually more than anything just asking a question just in general. But so 1 second. Oh, 1 second. Okay, so essentially, uh, yes, it's just a line of questioning. I ask if people agree to a certain. I'll just run it on you, okay?
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, knock stuff out.
But I have to be fair. I have to be because apparently people seem to think, which I know you're not, but people seem to think that I have a position here. I'm literally have no position in this particular situation. So,
No problem.
uh,
Yeah, just run it as is. Go ahead.
all right. So I want to give the definition. I mean, I found this on Google, so if there's a better definition, I'm totally open to it. But this is a definition that describes the process called the scientific method, and I want to know if you agree with me on this.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, a method of procedure that has characterized natural science since the 17th century, consisting in systematic observation, measurement, and experiment, and the formulation, testing, and modification of hypotheses.
It's a basic basal definition. I would tentatively agree with that. Sure.
Okay, all right, cool. I mean, because yeah, that's essentially all this. It's just describing the processes,
Sure.
like very loosely. Okay, so would you agree
Can I
that
just
what?
mention to Steve, I just put the definition in the text.
Thank you. Yeah, I heard it. Yeah, awesome.
All right, I can't actually see the side chat if it differs from mine.
It's not a method of procedure that characterized natural science in the 17th century, consisting in systematic observation, measurement, and experiment, and the formulation, testing, and modification of hypotheses.
Okay, yes, same.
Which again is a very basal definition. The scientific method is a step-by-step thing. It basically can be boiled down to formulate a conjecture, formulate hypothesis, test your hypothesis, refine the experiment, repeat for repeatability. Um, Publish. I mean, there's a lot of different things in the scientific method. But go ahead.
Right. I'm with you. All right. So what I would say, can we call something a scientific theory if it has not been fully subjected to the scientific method in a peer review process?
No.
Yeah, it has to for something to be a scientific theory, which I'm using the actual definition of scientific theory, not as the colloquial theory. Then it has to be observed and it has to be confirmed.
All right. So then I guess my next question would be, can you give me, with the scientific method, can you give me any observable or testable evidence for Darwinian evolution, and namely in something in terms of species, in terms of like mass radical changes, like gills to lungs?
First of all, I don't subscribe to Darwinian evolution. I subscribe to modern evolutionary synthesis. Um, the uh, the the gills to lungs is not something we need to observe. That is an explanation for what we observe today. When you say things like speciation, we can observe speciation happening. We've observed many cases of speciation. That's trivial to demonstrate. We've observed allopatric, peripatric, sympatric. We've seen them all.
Right.
Now, when we observe something, we say, hey, look, Monsanto has lungs. Hey, hi, sugar. How did Monsanto get lungs? Well, let's formulate an idea. Let's formulate a hypothesis, and let's test it. Let's say, see if this just lines up with the lines of phylogeny we know from evolutionary theory from, chordates and fish. Well, it does. It lines up perfectly. The observation we're required to see is not the transition from a species from millions of years ago, such as a fish group, to normal humans. That's not what a scientific theory requires as far as observation. We're only required to observe what we see today and then formulate how it happened in the past. That's how all scientific theories work.
Okay. So then, is it? This isn't the way it's described, and it doesn't sound like it's like conclusive.
Well, what do you mean conclusive? Evolution is.
Or I guess I would say there's a chance that it may not be absolutely true in reality.
All theory of gravity might be not absolutely true in reality, but if you jump off a cliff, I guarantee it, you're pretty well going to fall, right?
I can dig that. So, like, then, do we have any testable evidence that says or that suggests that we were descendants of, say, 550 million years ago? There was the species that was a flatworm. Do we have any testable evidence to show that we have a direct connection to them?
Yes. All life has common descent. We can show through phylogeny. We can show through DNA. We can show through the fossil record. We're not directly descended from flatworms. They are a common ancestry of life. But we can show that all life has common ancestry by simple deductive reasoning.
I can accept that. Even though, to me, if it sounds like if you're using like deductive reasoning and everything like that, there's still that chance that, I guess like you said with the theory of gravity, you're right about that.
Well, there's not a chance when you use deductive reasoning. You have inductive reasoning, which would lead obviously with the problem with induction, but I'm using deductive reasoning. And my deductive reasoning for common descent would be pretty simple. You and your cousin share common descent to your grandfather, correct? Or grandmother, grandparent, okay. You keep on doing that, and you can do that for species as well. If I have two daughter species that are related to a common ancestral species, then you would say that those two species have common ancestry to that. Right. Okay, so that an ancestral species must have a shared common ancestry with some other species because they are one of two daughter populations that branched off from a single one. And you can keep on doing this, over and over and over again. There's no hard cap to it. So therefore, deductively, everything has to be a speciation event from a prior species. That is the theory of evolution. I should say it's more specifically, that is the theory of common descent.
All right. Well, then, I guess I get that. And I'll let that be a scientific theory. I just don't think that's. I don't know. That just sounds. I don't think that's going to be something, because even Cliff was saying, we kind of have to look at things differently because, like I said, we don't know where the first living organism, which I know we don't have to for this to be theory. I understand. I understand that now the way you put this. I understand that these things don't necessarily have to be observed, but for me personally, because it doesn't seem because it's just not airtight to me, because there is a chance that we can discover something that completely blows away everything we thought about, maybe God and evolution and everything. Something may come up that's just like some other option that we never could have guessed, and it blows everything out of the water.
But here's the thing,
yes.
that whatever does that would need to account for what we see with evolutionary theory.
Yeah, it does.
So
exactly. Yeah, it doesn't change.
Yeah.
You got to remember, SpoKen, that what if something was to change things, it doesn't change our observations. We can go into a billion different things of why we have common ancestry of things. I mean, we could talk for hours, and we have. What are the various lines of phylogeny? What are ERVs? What are nucleotide sequences? What is the human chromosome number 2? What is the Lacan operator? All these things that show that we have ancestry to people to other things is the evidence. So if you have to come up with an alternative explanation, it needs to incorporate all those. And
I agree with that.
And think about it. Try explaining this. You are related to your sister or brother. You have genetically, almost identical. Matter of fact, you're 99% genetically the same with every human being on the earth. Now, I want you to explain how you're related. If I took your, a genome of you and your sister, or I'm going to say your brother, so it's a better match. But if I took a genome of your brother and you, and looked at the karyotype that you guys share, and compared it to your father, okay? Can you give me a scientific explanation of why they would be the same if you were not related? Vertical gene transfer.
Can I give a scientific explanation for it? Well, I mean, besides the fact that one came from the other.
Yeah, I mean, let's say that I look at your genome. I do a karyotype of yours, and I do one of your brother, and I say, look at, wow, you guys are like astronomically similar. I mean, you definitely, got to be related
Oh, right, right, right,
Your
right.
father, but I don't know how. Let's say I don't know how sex works. I don't know what a vertical gene transmission is. So I want to say I am hypothesizing that you two are related to your dad, but I have no scientific evidence for it. What scientific explanation would you have other than your dad sired you at some point? If say that you want
Right.
to come up with some other possibility, what would be another possibility then?
Right, right. Essentially, like, yeah, how would we? What scientific evidence can we have for actually confirming the link, other than the person admitting it or owning up to it, essentially, right?
No, no, not really. I'm asking you more simplistically. I'm
Okay.
saying you have pretty much a couple of choices here. You can say that what we know about biology, that you two are
Hmm.
related to your father, that the only way you can share the genes that you have is that he passed them on to you. That is a scientific um, that's basically reproductive biology, right? The other option would
I
be that,
see where you're going
yeah,
with
the other
this.
option would
Ah.
be little angels came in and made your DNA from scratch, and you basically popped into existence by spontaneous generation.
Right,
That
right.
that would be another option. Which one do you think is more likely?
That option you just described, where it's yeah. I can't just re-describe what you just said, but yeah.
I
Gotcha.
mean, so okay, so of course we could always posit other possibilities, but do they have explanatory power? Do they have predictive
Exactly.
power? So the theory of evolution is extremely sound. Do you realize that the theory of evolution is the most robust, predictive, explained, confirmed model of theory in all of science, bar none.
Actually, no. Yeah, I do believe that. Yes.
Okay.
The way that's evolution is defined. Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Good.
And just by saying the theory of evolution, you're almost stating, yeah, it is science. It's part of science. Given what we know, what theory means in science, it's like, well, if you're going to be calling it a theory of evolution, well, you've already admitted it in a sense.
Well, to be fair, like I honestly, because I'm out of date now because people have been telling me now that Darwinian evolution is not the thing.
Hmm.
It's now what did you say, Steve? You said it's something else.
Modern evolutionary synthesis combined with common descent with modification.
Wow, that's a mouthful. One second, I want to write this down in my
Oh, it gets
notebook.
worse than that. You can actually add in extended synthesis and environmental development, which I believe is included in the umbrella of modern evolutionary synthesis, but it depends on who you ask. The
I will rewind the tape and then.
Real basically, in a nutshell, Darwinian evolution posited that natural selection was the prime mover, and that there was no genetic explanation because he didn't know about genetics. He
Right.
didn't have any idea about Mendelian genetics. He didn't know about cytoplasmic inheritance. He had no idea about DNA, even though DNA was discovered, but he didn't know about it. Um, well, actually, I don't know. When did he write Origin of Species? Because DNA was discovered in 1869, and Origin of Species was what, 1850 something? Yeah,
What
somewhere
did
in that
he?
ballpark. But
He may have
Yeah.
knew about it, but maybe, but not. He didn't talk about it, perhaps.
yeah, well, like I said, I don't. I think Origin had to be before DNA because DNA was in 1869. I'm pretty sure Origin was before that. But Origin doesn't talk about any of that, anyways. Origin talks about hybridization and stuff like that. They have cabbages and pigeons mostly, domesticated animals. But what Darwin was positing was he had his own version of pangenesis as this heredity mechanism. He couldn't really understand what it was because he didn't know genetics. But that's why Darwinism is not correct, because we know now what it is. We know that we have genes. Does that make sense? So that's why when people say Darwinian evolution, it really does. I mean, I understand what they're saying, and colloquially, yeah, the mechanism is natural selection, but we also have mutation and gene flow and genetic drift and epigenetics and all this other fun stuff.
Well,
Um,
it sounds like I need to rephrase my argument though, because well, I guess I'll say this: a lot of people who maybe aren't so much in the know, such as myself, a lot of them kind of were subscribing to Darwinian evolution, but like I said, Cliff was the first person, and you're the second. No one else has actually brought up this other way yet to me. So
just a quick,
Monsanto doesn't. MMA, you don't subscribe to Darwinian evolution, right? You're a biologist.
yeah, no.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a straw man of tends to be on the creationist side who still use Darwinian evolution and so forth. But Sugar wants to have a quick question, and then I'll have a question to SpoKen about Do you have any further questions on evolution? But yes, Shuka wants to have a little
All right,
comment.
I can only say I'm only here until 12 because then I do have to jet. But go ahead.
Well,
Just going to make actually just a quick comment. It's kind of, I don't think it's less than a question. SpoKen, I saw everything yesterday. I watched the entire interaction, and then I watched today. And I just want to say this, that this is something that I feel pretty strongly about. Life is really a balance, right? And I'm speaking from the non-science side, which is absolutely as essential as your scientific side.
I can dig it.
Because life is a balance, right? As I'm listening, I was wondering where your resistance came from, and I think it's pretty natural for those of us to resist sometimes sight unseen opinions or perceptions from those who we oppose, either whether it be, from whatever angle, whether it be theologically or otherwise. So to acknowledge that resistance can sometimes be, we can be putting crap in our own way, right? Just because I don't have your same beliefs means I have to oppose you. And that's really what's wrong with my country right now. I don't know whether you're American, Canadian, or what, but that's what's wrong with my country right now. I live in a country, land of the free. I have a First Amendment right to believe what I want, yet all of my other fellow citizens, we fight each other as if we have to prove one or the other. Right? If your relationship is between you and God, then you work that. You do you and God, right? Because your God has told you that He's got things figured out, and He'll do what He has to do. Now I know you have to go process. You have to tell the word and everything. Tell your word, follow your script. If they don't listen, brush yourself off and do that whole thing, right? But we don't need to be so adversarial, because with evolution being information, I mean, I personally don't give a damn about evolution. It makes no difference to me how I carry on my every single day, right? And I know as a atheist, I'm supposed to want evolution to be everything because that proves my point, which I don't need to do, right? Because there's people starving, there's people that need stuff, there's people that need stuff right here and now, right? So I ask you that as a Christian, right? Why do you believe in Christ? Or Christianity? What does it mean to you? What does it do for you, and what does it do for humanity, right? And then
well, that's kind of a lot.
And wait, one more thing, and then I'm done. Why is it that you need evolution to be proved beyond a shadow of a doubt, but for a deity or for your God to be the creator of all things and responsible for everything? Why is it okay that you believe Him on proof, or on faith? Why do you believe that on faith? And why don't you allow others the same thing? So I need you to think about these things really.
I can answer.
No, I know you can answer. I don't actually need an answer because I know the answer for me. It's an individual thing.
Okay,
right?
I would want to respond.
So I'm not what. Sure, you can respond. I ask you, when you think about these things, where humanity plays a part in this, because if God, in my opinion, gave a damn about us and about our suffering, He would have either A, written the program to be self-correcting and to help us out. He would have B, shown us a way to find Him explicitly. We would have known for sure. He would have showed Himself. He wouldn't leave us hanging the way we are. And the whole time we're hanging, more people starve. And the more time we're hanging, more people kill each other. Okay, at some point, this is my focus, so I'm done now, but my focus is to stop walking in a circle, start moving forward, because we are continuing to be part of the problem and not part of the solution.
Go ahead and let SpoKen answer.
That's it. I'm done. I'm done.
Good rant, Sugar. One or two issues I take with it, but
that's all right. You're entitled. I'd love to hear them.
SpoKen, go ahead.
All right. This is going to be one time where I'm going to be extremely candid and genuine, although if I ever say this in text, it never really works out.
I'm glad you got that live.
I'm sorry, I didn't. Well, I'm sorry. But
I'm assuming you're always genuine and you're always truthful. But what you just said tells me that any other time other than right now.
Well, no, I'm going to be really candid right now too, though. I mean, I'm going to like, this is like, because I wouldn't say share this like necessarily all the time, even though I have shared it before. But so I mean, you asked why am I a Christian? It's because I believe the claims that's in the Bible. I mean, if in terms of going into that deeper, that would be a discussion for another time. I just don't have time right now.
I totally accept faith. I totally accept
Yeah,
anybody's saying faith. That's fine by me.
yeah, it's totally faith. And here's the thing: with that, I understand that there's repercussions to that, to my faith. If, like, for instance, if my faith was true, like I understand that my faith isn't true, and then say we die, maybe nothing happens, or something else completely different happens, or maybe I'm right. It's pretty much one of those three ways. Uh, but on the off chance that I'm right, which I am personally convinced that I am right about my position, because who isn't? Uh, I believe that there are consequences for the way things are. Like you asked, why didn't God rewrite the script or everything like that? I think that's a great question. But I don't have the answer to that question. I just know from based off what I have seen in like my personal experience, what I've read in the Bible and what I believed in the Bible, which is all of it, and what I've seen in real life, I see that there are just consequences. So why I may seem adversarial and everything like that online and everything, it's because it's purely out of frustration in a way that if, like, for instance, if you saw someone walking down, and this is just this is your opinion, and you're not 100% sure, but just let's just say you saw someone walking down, down an alleyway, and it leads to a cliff, and they're maybe blindfolded or they're just distracted by all the things happening around them, and they're just walking forward without looking. And for some reason, you're unable to touch them or pull them back or anything. Only thing you can try to do is convince them with your words to not walk off the cliff.
Right.
That is why I do the
Wait,
things
wait, 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 wait. Let's take that story. Just let him take the story a little bit farther, because this is where it happens. We stop before we get to the other side. So what happens when they walk off that cliff and you're not able to do that?
If they walk off that cliff, there may be, it's possible that they might sprout wings and fly away and be perfectly fine.
Okay.
Or, some other unforeseen thing. But what I sense personally is I sense that if they walk off that cliff, that it's going to be dangerous for them.
Okay. So here they walk off the cliff. So they walk off the cliff, right? They sprout wings and they fly away. Oops, you know what? My intuition was wrong. Thank goodness, right? Okay, right. Then they walk off the cliff and they splat down to the bottom and they die. Now, here's the issue. Mm-hmm. The issue, and this is where I feel there's a problem. You've done your job, right? You did what you needed to do. You said your words, you followed your rules, and the consequences were theirs. You didn't start him walking down that path. You didn't push him over that path. He went on his own, and you did what you were supposed to do. So while you can mourn his death and his loss, how sad that is, it is not your job to save everybody. I was a paramedic for 25 years, and I had to learn that I cannot save everybody. I didn't put the needle in that heroin addict's arm. I didn't do these things. But you know what? I did X, Y, and Z. I did my medicine the way I know how and the way I was told and the way the standards are set. And if I couldn't save him, that's the way it had to be.
Right. And the point was you don't give up until it's too late. With you.
That's fine. But how your line of too late is really subjective, right? And also, do you feel that you are so set in who you are, and are you the best person you can be today that you can distract yourself from it to go save save everybody else? It's this hero worship that we have, that I'm going to save the world. I'll be the one to dismiss Christianity, or to prove it wrong. Why?
You're kind of strong here.
I'm not strawmanning. I'm not debating you. I'm not debating you. So I can't be strawmanning you. Well, I'm talking to a young man about why he wants to think that way, because your method of thinking is very black and white. And nootropic, the funny thing is, the man you're arguing with really knows about thinking and expanding, and he's willing to look at many, many different ways of thinking. And he. I found it really funny. You're fighting against something that I don't think you need to fight against, because I think you're missing the point a little bit as well. There are many different objects.
Yeah, I'm not.
No, neither am I. Nobody is.
To me, like, the point of falling off the cliff is like we all walk off that cliff, when we die. It's just in my opinion or my
So that's
understanding of
death
it
for
is.
you? That walking off the cliff is death?
Well, yeah, I mean, death in this here body that we're walking in right now. You know what I mean? That would be the end of the cliff. And we don't know where the end of that cliff is for individual people because the path may be jagged. You may get hit by a car tomorrow, and then that's just the end. That's where your cliff was, and my cliff may be a couple years down the line. You know what I mean?
All right, Smoke, let me ask you this. Let me ask you. I
Yeah.
know because I know you don't have very long. If I said, I accept the theory of gravity as an explanation for what I observe about gravity, and I die, and God says, you know what, the theory of gravity is wrong. I didn't do it that way. I did it this other way. Do you think He's going to hold people accountable for that?
No, not for that. No.
Okay, then what's the difference with that and evolution when you just agreed earlier that there's more evidence that evolutionary theory describes observation even more than gravitational theory describes gravity? Why would God hold that? If for the sake of argument, evolutionary theory was incorrect, which absolutely would require a huge paradigm shift, like a brain in a vat type stuff.
Right.
So why would God hold that against people? If that's the observations being made, that's what He had us observe. And all the evidence points to that. Just like the old Earth, all the evidence we have, every scientific piece of evidence points to an old Earth. Now, if God says, well, I actually did it in 7 days, but I made all the evidence look older, do you think that's fair?
Well, here's the thing. I don't think God's not. Well, here's the thing. In my opinion, the Bible doesn't say that He's going to hold us accountable for like what we say. He's going to hold us accountable for if we either have Jesus Christ paying the cost for our sins, or we ourselves have to pay our cost for our sins, which we have all sinned. So if either someone has to pay the balance, either the person is going to pay the balance, or Jesus is going to pay the balance for the person.
Okay, but what does that got to do with the science?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think God condemns people on what they believe in science.
Because what you're saying is, if you notice, every creationist scientist out there that has actually a real PhD, did real PhD thesis on actual science that they had to accept at the time. The creationist nuclear scientist, he did his PhD paper on rubidium and strontium, so he totally accepted radiometric dating at the time.
Right.
Steve Austin, he's a geologist. He has to use old Earth modeling for geology. All these people that will promote some kind of thing like a young Earth do not have any science to back that up. So my question to you is, aren't you hobbling people, or aren't you causing them to have an issue when they go into higher academics when they have incomplete or missing or wrong information that they're going into? If I think the theory of evolution is this, and I go into my first biology course in college, and I'm learning about phylogeny and cladistics, and I'm like, wait a minute here, this is not what I was told the theory of evolution is. Don't you think that's a problem, that how these things are affecting our youth? And I know what Sugar's saying. Sugar's saying there's a social aspect. I get that. But what I'm saying is, because that social aspect is people on the internet like this, in videos, promoting this misinformation, demonstrable information, it harms the kids. It harms our educational system. You're not going to have as many people going through college and finishing and reaching fruition than you would if they did not have the strong foundation to begin with. Do you see my point on that?
Well, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and the whole thing is my intentions aren't to make things better in this here life. It's to convince people that Jesus can save the next life that I believe comes after.
Well, shouldn't it be both, though? If you don't make conditions better now, then what are you saying for our future and our future generations? You're giving them less of an opportunity.
I believe our future right now is pretty much doomed.
Well, that's a kind of a nihilistic approach. It's kind of a fatalistic, and you're entitled to it. But you know
it
what?
sucks. I'm not happy about it. Which is why I'm doing everything I can.
But let me tell you, people have had that for decades. My brother was like that back in the early 70s. He was like, we're going to all die by a nuclear war. Russia's going to blow us up. He was a Cold War, a person who lived in the Cold War and accepted that there was a huge chance that we might actually blow each other up. And then he was fatalistic about it. Didn't really, do much about his life because he's like, we're all going to die tomorrow. Never happened. And people have been doing that for hundreds, if not thousands of years, I think. I think it's a systematic pattern.
Right. Well, I will say I don't let it affect my day-to-day life. I still work a job, have a girlfriend, all that stuff. I'm going to be getting married relatively soon. So I'm
Congrats.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Don't do it. Don't do it. No.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. She's
But
got you by the balls.
no, she really does, though. I understand what that means now.
No, that's cool. That's cool. No,
Yeah, men never do anything wrong.
Right, but it's
now.
like,
males cannot do things wrong. We were programmed to be perfect. Yes.
You're right. You're right.
I kind of have a different perspective, I guess, on life, maybe in general, which is maybe a little more grim. Like because I kind of come to the realization, which is like I think this is a irrational fear to have, but as I'm a black guy and I'm just driving my car, and if a cop car like pulls up kind of beside me or something or is behind me, I don't know why, but I legitimately feel, or the thought goes through my mind that, oh man, this person might just kill me. Like this cop might just kill me and just get away with it because he's just acting out, and I don't know why, because it just seems to be
No,
happening.
that's not irrational. I could understand that, especially in certain areas. That's a rational position to have based upon the fact that there's been quite a bit of cop violence and prejudice and racism and shit like that. So
Yeah,
that's
I think it's been messing with me long term.
possible. I mean, I can't speak from experience. I've been pulled over numerous times, but I mean, I don't live in like Georgia or something in the back, 50 years ago.
You're not a black man, Steve.
Well, not that I know
That's
of.
super important.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
you know what? SpoKen. There's a saying that says, if you think the world is full of scary monsters, you'll see one around every corner. So if you focus on that, you'll see those situations. You can even make those situations. So if one focuses on good, maybe you'll feel a bit better. I'm not saying it's one of those secret universe things.
No,
Just
I hear you. I mean, you're
yeah.
right. You are right. You are right.
and something else, when you ran this argument, I didn't listen. I've obviously sugared it, but people kind of fill me in. I guess you said something about flatworms. Given enough time now, you said something about them possibly evolving
Both.
to like a human species or something.
Right. Well, I was just saying, like, yeah, has there been any test like similar to or kind of like where if we were to have, say, like an ancient version of the flatworm we put in an environment and you were to give it millions of years of age, what it would change into? Has any test like that been ran?
Well, do you think we could actually run things for millions of years?
No.
Okay. Do you think that if you took a flatworm today, that a billion years from now it would evolve? It could potentially evolve to a human. Is that even possible?
Well, no, because I mean, I do believe that there were probably different versions of flatworms.
Okay. Well, the more correct thing would be that humans have already been evolved. We already exist. It can never happen again. A worm can. I mean, we have to go by the lines of phylogeny. We have the tree, right? So if a worm today is at the branches of the tree, that can no longer recreate an event prior, right? I mean, it's already done. So it might evolve somewhere down the line to something. It might even become tetrapod, a tetrapod of some kind. But it won't be anything we know today. It's going to be a completely new animal.
Right.
That. I mean,
Is it possible to mimic the kind of environment like artificially?
you mean like primordial or like what?
Uh, I guess in any kind of thing. In terms
But
of
would
Well,
like
that matter?
yes.
But would that matter?
incredible.
Because then you'd be recreating it during modern time. It wouldn't be how it was recreated
Well,
back
right, it
then.
would be artificial.
Right.
You
And
could do
yeah, you
artificial
could,
environment.
sure. Yeah, we do it all the time.
Hmm.
Diane Dodd did one with Drosophila when she had one group with selective pressure, be it on maltose, and the other one glucose, I believe it was, and that is exactly controlling the environment. And they evolved. They didn't, become like, turtles or something, but they had an evolutionary process that allowed them to have selective sexual selection, which is prediction of evolution. So these experiments we run will be like, okay, what does evolutionary theory predict? We do an experiment on it, and the Dodd experiment showed, according to prediction, that given different dietary requirements and substance, that you would have a sexual selection. That was a confirmation of that prediction, and we do that all the time with things.
I can dig that. I'm gonna. Well, I know this is all live and stuff, so I'm gonna go back and listen to that. To what you said that that experiment was, and I'm gonna just look it up just to see because I generally trust what you say. But I'm gonna have to take off now, guys. I'm gonna have to.
Okay, man. Yeah, no problem. Thank you for running it by us.
Yeah, nice talking to you. And Sugar, man, after talking to you, I respect you. I apologize if I was being a bit rude to you. I do apologize.
Oh, me too, honey. We all get a little crazy now and then. It doesn't mean anything. If we can shake it off and keep walking, that's what counts.
I can dig it. All right, you guys. Peace.
Catch you later, man.
I know James is at work, so he's listening, but he can't talk. I'm sure if he
I mean, I can kind of jump in a little bit, but I can't do anything too in depth. But
what time are you off?
3 hours.
Oh. Okay.
Hiding from the boss. Oh fuck!
Yeah.
Oh fuck! Oh fuck!
He's like, I'm on Google Chat at work here. You see this? I'm recording this. I'm gonna dox you, man. Send it to your boss.
All good. I guess as far as abiogenesis, origin of life, what were you saying in your topic as far as me mischaracterizing the necessary and sufficient traits that life would need to have? You were saying I was mischaracterizing something.
Nootropic, you there?
He may have walked away for a few minutes.
I didn't listen to the
Yeah,
argument.
I'm here.
Oh, there it goes. There it goes. Go ahead.
So yeah, my question, Nootropic, you were saying that I was mischaracterizing the necessary and sufficient traits for the first life or for any life. So I said, homeostasis, growth, metabolism, reproduction, or self replication. What would be the problem with saying that the first organism must have had those properties or characteristics?
Well, the problem is saying the first organism. I mean, these traits which we describe, what we do is we look at the set of things that are close to what we regard as paradigm cases for living things. And then we look at the traits that they have, but what happens is that they don't all have all of those traits. So, for example, you get gray area cases where, let's say, replicators, just biological replicators, are they living or non-living? They don't all have the standard list you might get in a biology textbook.
You're talking about the new classification of pseudo-life?
You talk about RNA?
Any replicating, little thingy-majiggies.
So
They don't have, they don't really do much apart from replicate.
Is that, well, if that's considered life, do you consider that life?
They're kind of redefining life to be things. What are they calling it? They're calling it anything that has the potential to. I'm trying to think of the exact terminology because it's kind of specific. But for example, if we say our sperm living, in modern biology, they would probably say yes, they are alive. But there's two different ways of saying alive. Mostly, the old version would be: does it respirate? Does it metabolize? Does it excrete?
Right.
There's those 5 or 6 different things that all life has, or maybe there's 8. But I think nowadays we're kind of shying away from that because we're finding viruses, although they're not technically living. For all practical purposes, they function as a living organism. However, when you look at the TED Talk, the protocells that they did the experiments with just regular chemicals, they also look like they're actually alive. They do a lot of the same things that living organisms do, but they're just chemicals.
What they're looking for is what is the clear demarcation between molecules that have emergent properties and the ones that don't. And trying to find exactly where emergent properties arise, I think, is going to be the key between discerning one group from the other.
Yeah, maybe there isn't a line of demarcation. It's like saying, well, how many molecules of water do you need before it becomes something that becomes wet?
That's the sort of thing I was talking about. I was saying, you can have a set of properties, and you can specify this, the usual list. There's lots of acronyms for these. One of my favorite is Berlin, God sees, breathing, excretion, reproduction, locomotion, and so on. Right, and then some things that are studied within biology have some of these, and some things don't have all of them. And so it's really what people should be interested in is which traits they're studying and which things, rather than saying let's create a definition of life that everything fits. I don't think that's even necessary.
No, I was only talking about what would fit for the first life. So, for example, if the first life did not have the ability to self-replicate, we wouldn't be here. Do you agree?
Yeah. Okay. Well, there was something it had to replicate.
Exactly.
Something
right?
had to replicate,
exactly.
but it may.
But listen. But let me finish. So, if we talk about later down the line, a million years later, if we do have some organisms that cannot self-replicate, that doesn't speak to the first organism that must have had that ability.
Well, the first quote-unquote organism, well, there's a bit of a load there if you say organism. If you say that there exists something in the past which was a replicator molecule, such that, there was a chain of causal events from it to replicate, to form current life, then yeah. But that's different to saying first organism.
Yeah, I want to say organism.
I'm
I,
just
I
talking
would,
about the first life. I'm just talking about first life, whatever the first life is that we all
Well,
come
the
from.
well,
problem is using life. Anyway, Steve, you want to comment on
well,
that?
I
It
was just
comes
gonna
down
say,
to begging the question at a
I,
certain point.
I have a problem with the first anything because James, like according to evolution, if I said what is the first, human, and I'm not talking biblically, but I mean, if I said what is the first human, that question has no context, there's no sense to it. It's like asking what's the highest number next to one that's not one. There isn't any. There is no first human in these things. There is no line of demarcation. So when you say the first life, I don't think that question is sensical. I think you might say, at what period of time did we have the first things that maybe
Exhibited emergent properties.
yeah, there you go. I think that's probably a better way of saying it. The first things that exhibited emergent properties because there was not one single thing. It required probably a multitude. I don't believe in a single universal common ancestor of like one single cell that started off. It's possible, but I think they're kind of shying away from that. I think it was multiple things that came together to form the first entity that can do any kind of those steps like reproduction or anything like that.
What do you mean when you say multiple things that could have came together?
Like, for example, strands of RNA that came together. We know RNA can self-replicate. I mean, it has the ability to polymerize itself because it's an enzymatic function. But to call something a life, to say, I hate the word organism there. It's not going to be like a single thing. It might be like a lipid membrane, and then you have like some type of amino acid structure in there, whether it be RNA or whatever. But I think a lot of things had to come together. And I don't even know at that point a single one of those things could be construed as life, but you have a couple of those things put together, then you might have life. Just like, one brain cell is not going to be able to do anything, but you put a bunch together, you have an emergent property of consciousness, right?
Yeah, I agree. So I would consider that an organism at that point when it's all those pieces.
Yes. Okay, I can agree with that, sure.
So I guess what I'm saying is, well, I have to shut up for a second. Sorry.
As a layman, this is when I start to ask, why isn't it possible that God created evolution for us to learn by? And if you say because it's not in the Bible, that there are lots of things that are not in the Bible. So again, why are we all so fierce to make sure that this gets proven? That's just a comment.
I think it all boils down to if certain people realized that evolutionary theory was correct and that we did have an evolutionary chain, that would be some kind of conflict of crisis in their belief system. And I don't know why, because most of the people that accept evolution, that believe in God, have no conflict with it. They're able to reconcile it for whatever reason.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But there are some that are out there. I mean, to be young Earth creationist, you have to literally throw away so many different branches of science, and that conflicts with their religious position that the Earth is 7 days old. So they cannot have evolution to be true, because then their position on that would be false. Because I would say you have to have millions of years, billions of years for evolution to have taken place for us to be the end result. I will agree with that.
Is there anything else that the young Earth creationists accept science on that it would show that the inconsistency in that? I mean, if you do it for one part.
Well, they tend to pick and choose which ones they want to believe, and it goes along the lines of whichever one challenges their faith. It's not actually based on, here, I have evidence to legitimately question how this methodology was created for X, Y, and Z. It is, wow, there's a claim that exists in academia from a scientific consensus, and this, for some reason, does not jive with my theology. I'm going to question the scientific consensus. And that's usually how it goes, because you'll hear them contest the definition of theory, but you'll never hear them say germs don't exist. I've yet to hear any of them, and I've actually brought that up a few times. You will not hear any of them challenge germ theory. All of them will wash their hands, most of them will get vaccinations, and they're not fucking stupid. They're just dishonest.
But it's just a theory. Germ theory is just a theory.
It's just a theory, so don't wash your hands ever. Germs don't exist. It's just a theory.
They could, in principle, they could have good reasons for that within their worldview, actually. What they could do is that they could adopt something like this, and I'm leaving some of this epistemology unchallenged. So what they could do is they could say, well, I know that my deity exists, or in fact, more broadly than that my religion is true, which involves a whole set of beliefs, because I have some sort of revelation from God that's infallible, incommunicable, etc., etc. And what they'll say is that the degree of justification that I have for this is greater than anything else. So therefore, if something if something has a lower degree of justification, let's say they think of that as science, because science is not infallible, that is okay as long as it doesn't conflict with something that has a higher degree of justification, which is actually some sort of principle that we actually use anyway. So they could go along those lines to do it that way.
There's a guy, as a young guy, who uses something like that. What he ends up doing is he challenges just naturalism in general. I think I know Jimmy Stevens was one good for that, because he'll try and put you either in a camp of an empiricist, or I can't remember the name of the other one, but he'll try and put you in the camp of an empiricist to say, well, since empiricism is wrong, and I know that the information I get from my deity is infallible, therefore my methodology is better. And I mean, it's a cute, I guess, method to try and show that information that I do find it cute. It is pretty funny.
He's probably doing empiricism or realism.
Yeah, I think it's realism. He cannot actually demonstrate that. He cannot demonstrate that the information he gets from his deity is infallible. He'll just make the claim as a vacuous statement. So on the face of that, yes, I will completely agree that they can find a justification, but it's not rational as far as I'm concerned in any real sense. It's just statements being made by people.
Well, I wouldn't say it's rational, but I would say that if what they were saying is true, I would say that was actually justified. But the if is that they really do have this revelation that gives them this knowledge that is of a greater degree of justification. In fact, the highest degree of justification, that it's infallible, right? But what's curious is I don't think that this is a matter of empiricism to actually find what I'm about to say. I don't think that they actually do think this, because I have my doubts that they're consistent. So when they're challenging, let's say, evolution, they're not challenging it on the grounds that it goes against this high level of justification. They're challenging it internally to say, look, it doesn't even meet its own standards in some way. That's what they're actually trying to say, and that is, of course, what SpoKen is saying. We had a conversation where I kind of lost it early. Was it yesterday? Today I was very much more polite. But he was saying
lost it.
Well, yeah, kind of. That's an understatement. That really evolution doesn't even meet the criteria of being something that's confirmed by any kind of scientific method.
A lot of it has to do with inductive and deductive reasoning, and I think that's a part of the issue for a lot of folks. And I'm more than willing to say, that actually comprises much of science. We have to use induction and deduction at certain points, because there's no way for me to tell you to look at 12 million years of change. There's no way you could actually even begin to fathom that. There's no way people can fathom the concept of eternity, but somehow they cling to the idea of a deity existing for that amount of time. So I do find it interesting that many of them find that as a point of contention as far as the conceptualizing it, but will, on the other hand, have these very abstract ideas that they cling to for their personal theology.
Yeah, they want to deal with absolute, epistemology, and that's what I have the biggest problem with, because at a certain point you've got to say enough's enough. You could do reductionism to infinity, and what's the point? You're going to drive yourself crazy. If I'm looking at my computer screen, I can look at and say, okay, look, I see this, I see the light, I see this, I am interacting, blah blah blah. At some point, I have to make the assumption that what I'm seeing is correct. It is I should say conclusion, but I have to make the assumption that the entire universe is telling me that my monitor exists. Okay, do I have that for an absolute 100%, epistemological fact? Well, no, but we don't deal with that in science. We can say in science, all the evidence points to the fact that I've got a freaking monitor in front of me, right?
Steve, I want to mention, just returning back to what James was asking me, because I was thinking about this now. So, you know a lot more about evolution and the research into possible mechanisms of abiogenesis. I'm pretty sure of that. So I think if I thought back, and I remember his question, if I trace it back, I would answer him this way. I would say there could well be in the causal chain of replicators that led to me. there is maybe a first set of replicators in that chain. But there could have been replicators that came before that temporally that didn't lead to me. They just didn't go anywhere. And that's a possibility I can conceive of. And there could have been things that had, the sort of properties you were talking about that didn't even replicate, that could have been side chains that didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, failed results still led to you. Even though things failed, if they didn't have those failures, there would have been successes.
Yeah, I mean, like
chain.
there was some side replicators that could have been earlier than the first in the chain that led to me that didn't go anywhere. They just died.
Yeah,
but they didn't go anywhere.
But that's not. I'm concerned about the base of the whole chain, the first link in the chain, and there's no prior attempts and failures and successes to speak of before that first guy. You understand what I'm saying? So.
But what is this first guy defined as? That's the thing.
I'm just saying minimally.
Given what Steve said.
I'm saying minimally it has, let's say, metabolism and the ability to self-replicate, right? Because let's say it doesn't have metabolism. So it starts off with all the energy it needs, but it can't absorb any other energy and keep itself alive. So it ends up dying out, like a sperm. You're talking about a sperm being alive. Well, sperms, I don't think they absorb energy and sustain themselves, right?
It could still be a replicator without a metabolism.
Exactly, but it would have to replicate, early on in its lifespan. And
not necessarily.
It wouldn't have a lifespan.
Before
Why
would
it have a lifespan?
Well, because that's how life works.
Well, yeah, but
if it would replicate merely, why would it die? I mean, that is imposing conditions. What would that mean, right?
I mean, I don't think there's anything we know that's eternal as far as.
Well, actually, there are organisms that actually are eternal. There's actually there's a species of jellyfish that is functionally immortal. Yeah. It actually goes back to its pupa, larval stage when it reaches the end of its adult life cycle, and it regenerates itself over and over.
It's a cyclic process.
So do you believe that the first organism must have been something like that?
No, the first sets of organisms that existed could have been two mutually exclusive ones that probably consumed one another. And actually, there's evidence to show that our mitochondria actually came from an earlier eukaryote that was consumed by, prokaryote that was consumed by a eukaryote. So it's actually two separate entities that are now functioning, kind of like, think of it like a symbiosis.
Yeah, what I was saying is that I don't want to use the word die. I'd say if you have a mere replicator, it just means it replicates. And, if that chemical continues, then it continues. And if there's something else that disrupts the chemical structure, then it disrupts the chemical structure. That's all the replicator would require. Just
that needs energy.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to have a certain environment, certain energy, blah, blah, blah. But it would just, continue to replicate, make copies, and if the environment was such that the chemical bonds were altered, they would go. But I wouldn't describe that as dying. That's all I'm saying, James.
Because you could actually have a partial decomposition of, because there's four organic molecules. There's lipids, carbohydrates, nucleic acids, and proteins. If you have a breakdown of, let's say, the lipid, the bilayer, the phospholipid bilayer, and that produces the individual elements such as carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. They are still able to form bonds to make other molecules. If the decomposition of this first set of, we'll call it an entity, this first sets of entities somehow contributed to the rise of another one, all it would take was a chemical decomposition and then a reconstitution of that from raw material in the environment. That is a form of replication. We actually see stuff like that with lichens and how they break down or the other organisms, and then those other organisms then go on to either nourish or turn into other things. So there is a cyclic process that goes on chemically that folks are, I guess, kind of looking over from time to time.
You're doing PCR reactions right now, right? I mean, so you're
No, that's PCR reactions are next week. We're gonna be doing that.
Because you're gonna use surfactants and what do they call it, detergents. You're gonna be breaking down the bilipid bilayer by using detergents because and then you get the DNA out of there. And I think that's kind of exactly what's going on and what you were saying initially, because that's how that kind of works in doing a polymerase chain reaction.
Yeah, I think we're using the tag or the TAC polymerase.
The TAC polymerase?
The TAQ. It's the polymerase from the extremophile. The ones that can withstand the different heat temperatures, because we have to put it in the what's its what in order to that's a very scientific term, the what's its what. We have to put it in the what's its what in order to break the fucking chains. And then the TAC polymerase actually acts as a coater. And we have the primers to put on there, so when the TAC polymerase gets on there, it'll start from the primers and then start making the additional strands of the DNA.
I'm looking it up now. I got to admit, I've not heard the term TAC polymerase. I obviously it's one of the many types of polymerase, but I'm not that familiar with that type. It's called a titanium TAC DNA polymerase.
Yeah, it's actually it's a polymerase from an extremophile, like the ones over in Yellowstone Park that live in the geysers. And the reason why we use it is because it can withstand the differing heat, the lowering and the raising of the heat for the stuff that we're dealing with. I'm playing division and trying to talk science.
Are you like doing annealing of the DNA or something?
Well, we're trying to bifurcate it so that there's two separate strands, and then we put the primers on there, because the TAC polymerase won't be able to start putting the raw nucleotides on there unless it has something to begin the process. So that's why we use the primer.
You're just using heat to break the hydrogen bonds to separate. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but you see, the issue is that if we use our own polymerases for that, the heat would denature them. So we have to use a TAC polymerase.
You would denature the DNA?
Yeah, because that's the thing. Because if we're trying to get like loads and loads and loads of it, that's going to take forever. But so we have the raw nucleotides, in the soup in there with it. But you need a polymerase in order to, put them together like puzzle pieces. But the issue of us creating hundreds of thousands of copies and in an efficient manner in a short period of time, we have to keep breaking those chains and then lowering the temperature so they come back together. But the polymerases for plants and animals, for us as eukaryotes, it's not going to withstand that heat difference.
Right, it'll lose its structure.
Yeah, and so that to avoid the denaturing, that's why we use the TAC polymerase.
That's cool. I've never ran across that before. I've never worked with PCR reactions, so I mean I think it's amazing that you would get to actually do them. I'm almost envious. Because I think it'd be fun. I think you can do it at home. You can do it at home. I mean, I know there's a really good video out there that shows people how to extract DNA from like orange or something like that, or potato or something. You're just using a detergent to break apart the bilipid layer. The DNA comes out, and then you can see it like floating as this like white little strandy stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So just to kind of, because I'm gonna head back into work in a bit. As far as what I'm concerned, as far as what I'm seeing, as far as the origin of life issue, abiogenesis issue, is what would be required for the first organisms to avoid extinction within the first million years, first day, first 100,000 years, because if the sun burns up the puddle that they're in, if a rock falls in the puddle that they're in, or wherever they're at, especially with the way full-grown organisms go extinct today. To think that these microscopic organisms were able to avoid calamity, extinction for a million years before, like, let's say, a little bit bigger organism was formed or evolved. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to see how that would actually work out. And then as far as the Bible and what it says and how I put that together with science, my personal experience has definitely confirmed that God is real. God has interacted, spoken, whatever, shown shown the future and all that good stuff. So I definitely know that the God of the Bible is real from my own personal experiences. But in the Bible, yeah, it says Adam and Eve were created from the dirt by God's hand. I believe that. If the current science disagrees with that, I say, okay, I understand that people believe it that way. There's the remote chance that I am misunderstanding what God put in the Bible. I don't believe that that's the case, but if you want to tell me I might be misunderstanding it, you can say that too.
I would definitely.
But as far as I'm concerned, I've seen that the science tends to get closer to what the Bible says every little by little, and so I would say we would eventually find, if the Bible's true, you're going to find that science confirms that Adam and Eve is what it was. The Noah's flood is what it was.
Well, let me respond to the Adam and Eve thing. It's literally impossible for a God to have created Adam and Eve from afar, from the dust of the ground. 90% of the Earth's surface is made out of silica, which is silicon dioxide. We are not silicon-based. We are actually carbon-based. So I'm not sure how you would ever come to the conclusion that two different elements that have two different binding capabilities would somehow, I guess, be uncovered one day to then have the same properties, which they've never had. They're two completely different elements. So, and to give you an example, so if we looked at everything within our bodies, from the proteins to the tissues, everything is based on carbon chains of carbon, not silicon. So I'm curious if maybe, and I've heard from other Christians that they take that line out of Genesis to be allegorical because the science does not, and I can say with almost 99.9% certainty that it will never somehow then acknowledge that there is a silicone carbon mismatch that you can just do for an organism during some point in time in their evolutionary development.
Can I add something to that? Let's say, James is, he says that he has this epistemology which allows him to know that his particular Christian God exists. Well, from that, I'd be curious to know how it follows that, this is related to what, I don't know what your name is, the person who just spoke. Dragnot, yeah, I'm sorry. Said that, I don't see how that follows that, the verses in the Bible should be taken quite literally rather than non-literally. And you said that you believe the Bible is true. That presumably, I'm presuming this of your beliefs, that the entire Bible is taken where you think it's intended is taken as historical. So
yes, when it's presented as such, yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I'm asking. So why would it follow? So, for example, the account in Genesis, why would it would follow that if you had that revelation? I mean, obviously, if the revelation was such that, the attributes were that I am the God of the Bible and I'm going to tell you which parts are literal and which ones are not, then yeah. But it doesn't tell you that.
Yeah, the Bible makes the claim that these things happened in time, in the historical parts of the Bible. Whereas with the allegorical parts, it tells you this is a parable that I'm using for a teaching tool, or this is a prophecy, and this is a vision, and these are symbols, and this is what this symbol means, and this is what that symbol means. With Adam and Eve, it's presented as having occurred, and here's what I mean by that. You start off with Adam and Eve, they have sons and daughters, right? And in the book, right after it talks about their creation, it tells you Adam lived 130 years and he had Seth. Seth lived this long and he had this, down until you get to Noah 1,656 years later. And then Noah, after him, he has sons and sons till you get down to Abraham. And then from Abraham down to Jesus, and from Jesus, that was 2,000 years ago till today, right? So somebody would have to tell me, if they're saying that this is allegory, where between Adam and Adam having the son did it stop being allegorical to being historical? So there's no presentation of Adam and Eve being an allegory.
You do realize that longevity traditions and myths, I mean, they're not exactly unique, right? I mean, they're sort
Nobody's talking about, what we're talking about is the Bible, and if it's presenting historical information.
Sure. But
or if it's talking about allegorical information. So what I'm saying is, in the text itself, It starts with Adam, and then it tells you he has a son. It tells you how old his son lived to be. So for the person who posed the question, nootropic, I'm saying the God of the Bible who revealed himself to me, and he also gave the information in the Bible. He's presented Adam as living for a certain number of years and then dying and having a child, all the way down till today, where we can say, if you're believing the Bible, you would say that it was roughly 6,000 years ago. So if science, my prediction would be that one day science will confirm that, if the Bible is true. You can tell me the Bible's not true.
James, just a quick question. Comparing abiogenesis to Genesis in the Bible, do you hold that in the Bible, following Genesis, that things were spontaneously generated, that God spoke them and they literally popped into existence?
No. The way the Bible presents it is that he created, let's say, Adam and Eve from the dirt. So in the first couple chapters, it says he said, let there be male and female, let there be, right? And it was good. It just says that. But then when it zooms in on when he actually did create them, it's that he pulled them from the ground. He pulled Adam from the ground and then made Eve from Adam's rib.
That would still be almost analogous to spontaneous development. I mean, from
the dirt.
If I have a dirt pit in front of me, I'm not going to pull a fully formed person from that. So their molecules, their organisms, their body is going to start to pop into existence.
No, that's an assumption.
Well, no, it goes. Well, hold on. It goes back to what I was saying. You don't have the elements available to have a fully formed adult from silica. It's literally impossible to do that.
With God, all things are possible, according to James. What I wanted to say is this. So, okay, what I'm really after is what are the criteria by which you know that these verses in Genesis are actually literal rather than non-literal? I know you said it says that Adam had this lineage, that lineage, but why isn't it logically possible that that wasn't intended to be literal? That was meant to communicate some other message.
I mean, I don't even know how I would read anything and understand anything in any book, regardless of whether it's the Bible or not. If it's being presented as having happened, if it says John F. Kennedy was killed in 1960 whatever, you to kind of assume that maybe this is an allegory. It depends on if this is a work of fiction. It depends on it, right? So it would depend on.
But novels say can describe genealogies. I mean, J.R. Tolkien did a good job of that, but that doesn't immediately entail.
Exactly. So it depends on if this is a work of fiction that doesn't claim to be in reality. Or if
but how do you?
If it's claimed by the author, so you'd want to know if the author is claiming that this is a work of fiction, or if the author is claiming that this is true, right? That this happened in reality. So you'd ask that author. So then you could ask that author, right?
I think the bigger point that's being overlooked here is that the Bible is not a science book. I mean, you don't read the book.
Nootropic is still finishing this. Let Nootropic finish what he's asking.
Okay, so I agree that's the criteria that we use for other books, right? Usually that's the criteria we use for other books. But I'm asking you about the Bible. So how do you know for the Bible that's the criteria to use?
Because Jesus is referencing back to Abel through Zechariah, saying that you will be receiving the same punishment that all those who killed Abel down to Zechariah received. He's referencing Abel as a living person, right? And so Adam was Abel's father. So why am I if and I could do that with any other book that's cross-referencing back to Genesis,
right?
And so I don't know where you would get that it's fiction if all of the books are referring to these events as historical.
No, I'm not saying it's fiction. I'm just saying, well, how do you know? Now, if you say, well, Jesus said, reference to story. Well, what if this could get dangerously close to begging the question? What if that was not intended as literal either? What if only certain parts were intended as literal? What if he was just... hang on. What if he was intending it as literal, that Jesus really said it, but Jesus knew that it was just a story to illustrate a point?
Because then with Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and all the epistles of Paul or whatever, the fact that they were being sent one by one as just letters, right, from one person to another. This is just an individual letter that I'm sending from me to you to tell you about what happened in my town, what things that I saw, my experiences. I'm just sending this to you. I'm not sending it out for everybody to read. I'm just sending this to you, from me to you. When Paul says, Timothy, I'm speaking to you to inform you about this, to teach you about this, and I'm referencing Jesus. So if Paul's writing to Timothy, and he's not presenting anything as a fiction or a story or anything, he's just saying, I'm writing this letter to you. I'm sending you a text. I'm sending you an email. That's all I'm doing is I'm sending you an email. Why should you assume that I'm writing you a piece of fiction? We have all these claims in the text itself that have nothing to do with an artistic anything. It's just facts.
All right, well, the last thing I want to add, fair enough, is what about, I think William Lane Craig mentions this, and I'm just asking out of curiosity as to whether you know and what your response is. So he mentions that St. Augustine didn't take Genesis literally. Is that right? Or is that not right? I don't know.
Let's say he didn't. I don't know. Let's say he didn't. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, that's all. Then I have nothing to add.
James, I thought it was interesting you said that as science progresses, it gets more and more closer to what the Bible narrative is. And I kind of wonder where you get that from, because I think everybody in here particularly would probably say that's just the opposite. I think would be the consensus.
Let's say you have the Bible claiming that there are these ancient cities. Just by the mere fact that it's mentioned, let's say the city of Jericho or some other city, whatever, just in passing named in some stories in the Bible. And you might have some scientists saying, that never existed, we've never found that city or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then archaeologists dig up the city in the same area that was claimed in the Bible, and it's like, oh, well, that city actually is here. And city after city,
that would be expected. We would expect cities to exist. We'd expect that it's historical context that nobody's going to say that the Bible is completely made up. But
that's not science, is it?
Well, archaeology is a type of science.
Yeah, that was my point. That was, I think, was kind of looked over.
So that confirms. That helps confirm the Bible, right?
Well, not really. No. That's about very, very, very weak evidence.
If I'm writing, if I'm writing a book and I'm claiming I have an invisible pig, I can cite, the city I live in. I've been to X place, this place, and that place, but that doesn't confirm that I've got an invisible pig.
No. I got a better one. I mean, Spider-Man. I mean, sure, New York exists.
Spider-Man is the classic example.
Yeah, I mean, just because New York exists doesn't mean Spider-Man, Mary Jane, Doc Ock, or anyone else in there is real.
But to be fair to James, I don't think he's saying that it confirms everything.
No, and I don't think he's saying that either.
That's what I wanted to ask him, James. Are you specifically talking about archaeology confirms the Bible?
I'm saying that there are things in the Bible that are thought to be untrue, and that can be completely, I don't want to say completely falsified, but yeah, if we never find evidence of X that the Bible says should be evidence of,
no one's
that's a good example. How about the Exodus?
We're saying they're not aware of it at the moment. That's all. And the idea, we expect there to be no one disputes that the Bible was written in the 1st century or whatever, or the 2nd century, where they're going to be mentioning places that they're familiar with. Just no one's going to deny these places exist, although we have some problems about the Temple of Solomon or something. So no one's disputing they're going to be things that people wrote about in the 1st century AD that we have yet to find. No one's declaring them as untrue.
Here's another issue about convergence. So it could well be the case that there's greater and greater evidence for, let's say, things like, I'll leave like a little bit vague, cities, people, places. But the problem comes when you're talking about cataclysmic events like the Tower of Babel, the creationist flood, and so on. Now we have almost
the Genesis account.
Or even
right,
Exodus.
Genesis account. Right, Exodus.
There's no evidence that we have ever found. Right. We haven't found a single shred of evidence of the Exodus.
Right. So now, hang on. Let me just. So the issue there, I mean, apart from the Exodus one, which actually that could be a border, I could actually fit in what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it. The issue there is that, is it even possible to have confirming evidence for, supernatural events if you accept that history is a science that's based on other sciences, and you can't have confirming, there's arguments to them, I'm not sketching them out full, but you cannot have confirming evidence for supernatural events, not historical ones. And that would mean that there's an upper limit to how far you can go with this, your idea that you can confirm what's in the Bible. At best, you could confirm things like cities, places, people maybe, but when it comes to the Genesis account, the flood account, and so on, there could be a bar there.
So, I mean, let's say the Bible did give a specific location for where Tower of Babel was, and we searched all over the place, never found that. That's one thing, right? But if we do go to that location and you do find Tower of Babel there, does that help the case for the Bible or hurt it?
No.
That's all I'm saying.
It helps. It helps to confirm the existence of a place that might have been called Babel, right? And it could confirm that. But then the further claim that this is the origin of all human languages, that just flies in the flat in the face of everything that we know about the history of languages.
Okay. All right. Let me add this one last bit. Steve's gonna love this.
Go ahead. I love it already, man. I love it already.
Soft tissue in dinosaur bones.
What about it?
That is interesting, right? You would think that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. No, I want you to. He knows that we can wreck this one to no end. So go ahead.
You would think that the evidence would not ever, as far as dinosaurs go, would never fall anywhere close to the side of dinosaurs being young, but finding young tissue, soft tissue in dinosaur bones, gives a strong indication.
Really?
That is not 65 minutes. Go ahead, Steve.
All right. So explain to me the scientific reason why collagen and heme cannot last for 65 million years. What is your scientific explanation of why that is not possible?
I could not repeat it off the top of my head.
Because there isn't any. In fact, there's been recently, I think it was even a month or two ago, another scientific paper that was based on very similar things that Mary Schweitzer did. And that confirmed her analysis that the ferrite, the ferrous material that acts as a protective coating, was a viable mechanism to explain the preservation of the quote-unquote soft tissue. It goes to the fossilization mechanism. It doesn't go to the age of the specimen. The age of the specimen in the paper, and this is a perfect example of cherry picking, you're willing to accept that the paper in it had soft tissue, but in the same paper it was confirmed that it was 65 million years old. Mary herself has said it is 65 million years old. So you're cherry picking the paper apart by saying, well, I'm accepting that the soft tissue existed, but I'm not accepting the same as that paper that I can't falsify that the samples were not 65 million years old. That is the definition of cherry picking of a paper.
Well, I mean, if it came from dinosaurs, obviously they have to say it's 65 million years
old.
No,
right? They did testing on it. They tested the rocks.
Whoa! Why do they have to say that?
Yeah, why do they have to? In fact, the scientists would love to prove that wrong. They'd be famous.
Yeah. Because that's the understanding of how old dinosaurs are.
No, that's not.
That's not how it works.
There's a common misunderstanding with dinosaurs. People still call pterodactyls and pterodons dinosaurs when they're not. And they're actually in two completely separate time periods. So there's no... Yeah, go look it up. Pterodactyls are not dinosaurs.
Yeah, I know, but they exist at the same time.
Not the time period. There's a line in between where, like, let's say Allosaurus, Tyrannosaurus Rex, where they lived, and then the pterosaurs.
No.
Yeah, pterosaurs were much. If I remember correctly, the dinosaurs died out about 65 million years ago, about the same time that those fossils. That was when the big meteor hit in the Yucatan Peninsula. But as far as like pterodactyl, I would call them maybe avian dinosaurs. Is that acceptable?
I think Jade actually knows a bit more.
No, I don't think they are. They're not classified as dinosaurs, but they lived at the same time as dinosaurs.
Well, they're Jurassic, obviously.
Yeah, with Jurassic Dragnauts claiming they didn't live at the same time.
That was 150 years ago, 150 million years ago, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, well, the Dragnauts claiming they didn't coexist.
Hold on. There was a difference from the last thing I read where they were not within. It was some particular time frame, but that's a small issue.
They did. They existed at the same time.
Because I don't know what clade they're in. They're not in the clade of Dinosauria.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're saying.
They're on Nithodira.
Steve, really quick. Why
Yeah.
did Schweitzer have her assistant do the test like 17 times when she first found the soft tissue?
Because
Was it because they did not expect that collagen could be preserved that long, or soft tissues could be preserved?
because of the understanding we have had of the fossilization process, they did not think that those small fragments could be preserved that long. But that was not because of the understanding of the age of the material. That was because of the preservation of the material.
The iron.
Right.
The iron.
Right.
The paper she had explains why. It gives an actual. That's what science does. It explains why are we observing this.
Because it was new, it was novel, wasn't it? Therefore, she
It
had
was
to check
amazing.
it.
It was an amazing find, and yet I'm positive one other paper has. I'm pretty sure that even two, and I could validate this, but I'm pretty sure that it's two. But I'm going to say, for sake of argument, one paper's already confirmed her findings. That hypothesis is confirmed. That is what is possible.
The paper she put out like last year or like the year before.
No, this was a separate paper based on that. I would have to find it, but they've actually confirmed that the hypothesis is valid. There's nothing about, again, unless you can give a scientific reason why collagen, which is just a structural protein, cannot exist for that period of time, then I don't know what the argument is. She didn't have a claim that she found intact DNA fragments or anything, which I believe can happen. There's no reason why we cannot find DNA for 65 million years old. There's no scientific reason. It's improbable. Yeah, it's improbable, but it is not impossible.
Yeah, I thought it was very, very improbable.
No, they were actually looking for some. They actually thought they found some with some pregnant dinosaur not too long ago, but it turned out to be wrong. They could find nucleotides, and they find a couple base pairs, but they can't find anything that's actually transcriptable. But no, that's completely possible. What do you think they've been trying to do? We can go back. Let's put it this way, James. We can't, for a fact, find DNA that's 45 to 100,000 years ago. We've done that with mastodons, okay, and woolly mammoths. So we know that is the case. So that right there refutes young Earth creationism, because if you're going to accept the science to a certain degree, then you cannot just randomly say, I'm going to cherry pick this and say, wait a minute, these mastodons were not 45,000 years old, because you're you're by fiat throwing it out.
We've got trees with tree rings that are older than flipping 6,000 years.
The preservation of those tissues does not hurt the case for the Bible. I think it helps. So that's all I have to say. I have to go back inside, guys, but I'm listening from the outside.
All right. Yeah, I don't know how that would ever help the Bible when there's nothing scientifically at all demonstrates that.
If those tissues were never found, that would, I don't know, it wouldn't be good for the Bible, right?
Well, I mean,
it's tissue, even with collagen. So what does that have to do with anything? There's nothing in science that says collagen cannot exist after 65 million years. Nothing.
Okay. So then I'll send you something, Steve, as far as why finding soft tissues, why that would have been a problem.
Well, I mean, even with the Utsi man, I mean, they had, what was it? 53,000-year-old corpse found frozen in the ice. And they pulled out chunks of DNA fragments, and they were able to isolate that and then, show the Utsi man's lineage, a part of the what was he?
Well, it goes back to the picking and choosing. It's like, wait a minute, they want to accept the science that the soft tissue, according to them, exist, and it demonstrates 6,000 years old, but they're willing to throw out all the evidence that we have DNA from 45,000 years old, 100,000 years old.
Steve, I mean, what is the, so let's say the existence, let's say it was actually the case of soft tissue in dinosaurs that are, dated by the methods we know, 60, what would that prove to a young Earth creationist exactly? I mean,
wrong. That they believe that obviously that dinosaurs coexisted with man, when there's literally overwhelming evidence that is not possible.
Right. But if they found soft tissue, let's say in a dinosaur, and it was dated, according to the methods, 65 mil, then it would just show that, at best, I can't see how that would help the case other than to say, well, they have some other reason to think that that's impossible, right? And if they don't, then it actually proves that the Earth is 65 million years old. I don't get it. What on earth in the mastodon thing? I don't get what the hell that would prove. I don't get it. To them, I don't get it. How does that help them in any way?
Here's how the modeling works, though. And then I want to kind of switch gears. Isaiah brought up a video, and maybe you guys want to critique this video with us. It's only like 16 minutes long, and I have not watched it yet, so I thought it'd be interesting. to go through this video as and just do a Mystery Science Theater 3000 thing on it. But what James and the rest and a lot of creationists don't seem to regret is the model works. When we said, okay, we want to set out to find a specific fossil, when obviously the biggest one that we know of was Tiktaalik. We knew where to look for in the geographical strata. We knew it had to be about 350 to 400 million years ago. I think it was found in 375 million years. So this works. We know that these strata are that old because the model, everything we have about the modeling for our geological column and the phylogeny, we know is based upon actual evidence. And they just want to throw that all out there. Say, look, we have this little anecdotal thing that says, oh, it's soft tissue. Well, so what? There's nothing. If you found me something that said, you know what, it is impossible for soft tissue to be older than 6,000 years old, then yeah, you got a case. But if you can't say why soft tissue cannot be older than that, then it's completely meaningless drivel.
Right, and that's the only thing they would have to say. It's impossible, and specifically, but more than 6,000 years old.
Yeah.
So but otherwise, I don't see how it helps them at all.
I think it comes back to the Tommy Hall effect. They read just enough science to misunderstand what they're trying to grasp, and then they try and present it as if it's something novel. But if you don't have the basis to actually understand what soft tissue is and how chemical decomposition actually works, then you're going to end up falling flat on your face with a lot of these claims. And that's what I see from a lot of folks.
Yeah, and the bigger reason is this gets into the problem with popular science. If you notice in every article, pretty much when they talk about the soft tissue, they put it in quotes. Do you guys notice that?
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. Because collagen is a structural protein that obviously is used for scaffolding. It's part of the tissues. So, but when people think of soft tissue, we think of flesh, right?
Epithelial tissue.
Yeah, epithelial tissue. So this is not what they're talking about. This is that they're finding a structural protein that has some kind of intactness. But it was fossilized. It was mixed in with fossilized stuff. They had to put this stuff in an acid bath to soak it down to find these real small pieces of particulates. And the other thing they found was against heme, which is another type of protein found in hemoglobin. There's nothing in the world that says this stuff can't exist, but we didn't understand how it got preserved until Mary Schweitzer did her research. And she did it correctly, it seems, because it has not been falsified yet. In fact, it has been confirmed by other sources. So I don't know how that's helped their case. Go ahead.
Basically, it's just demonstrating we don't know all the biochemistry and chemistry that can happen in the world. We don't know all the possible chemical reactions and what can happen, what can be preserved, and the fact that iron does something we've discovered. So it's just there's no one's piece of science, as Steve was saying, was that collagen cannot survive, but just we're not familiar with how it may do so. There have been no rules set down as to why something can't happen. We're just discovering things every day.
Yeah, it's not that big of an anomaly. It's not like we're finding some anachronistic thing in a geological layer that's for hundreds of millions of years old and we find a wristwatch. Okay, I mean it's nothing like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Brumpus, I put something in the external chat to kind of help explain what I was getting at with the pterosaurs.
Okay.
It was a Triassic Jurassic difference. It's not. I don't want to minimize millions of years, but one was in that the dinosaurs that we commonly see in Jurassic Park were from the Jurassic, and then pterodons.
That's right. But there were pterosaurs, and they were around 250 million. Then there were pterodactyls, one of the later forms. So both of those were coexistent with dinosaurs. But I haven't looked at your link yet.
But they weren't actually considered dinosaurs, which is really
indeed. I never disputed that. I'm completely prepared to accept that they were not dinosaurs, but you claim they didn't live at the same time. That was the point I was catching.
Oh no! I wasn't trying to make that a point of contention. Just to point out that this idea that you have these lizard-like creatures, these reptiles, they have to be old, they have to be of this particular age. It's like, no, that's not true. Why go through the trouble of, and I hate to get into this, but why make a grand conspiracy, to just call all these creatures old and then arbitrarily, place some of them in different periods? It doesn't make sense.
Do you guys want to do this video thing? I think it'd be kind of cool. You guys want to watch this video and critique it? Isaiah says it's pretty funny. It's called 10 Facts Evolutionists Don't Want You to Know. Okay. And I have not watched it yet, so I figured we
sounds entertaining.
So I got 15 minutes before I work. Let's do this.
All right, that's the actual video. I will present.
Biology exam. Don't make me fucking kill myself.
Yeah, that gives you some misinformation.
Yeah, you don't want to fill Dragnaught's head with bollocks before he has to take an exam.
No, it's already done. I spent 3 hours studying cell signaling, so I'm like, whatever. Let's fuck it. Let's brain dump.
Let's see if I can figure out how to do this. Watch YouTube hang out things together. So how do I do this? I click on Add Playlist. Okay.
Yeah. And we all have to have the YouTube app, I think, as well, don't we? So I've got that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me get on my computer.
So everybody has to make sure, I think, they've got the YouTube app if they haven't got it already.
Or I can just present it, I guess. Would that be easier?
No, I think, I'm not sure, but I thought everyone else who was viewing it also had to have it, but I might be wrong about that.
I think they do too. All right, so add a video.
If you're going to screen share it, then we can see it, but we won't be able to hear it unless your speakers to pick it up.
Yeah, but you will if you just if we all have the YouTube app. You won't have to do that. It'll get directly. It'll come directly from the YouTube thing. The sound will not have to go through speakers. That's the whole point of it.
Let me see. Can you guys see this?
No.
You can't see that?
Nope.
All
right. Okay, you have to click on the actual YouTube app thing on the side.
Yeah, you have to click on the YouTube app. I think that's what.
Yeah, so everybody click on the YouTube app.
I just did.
Okay.
We have to do it. Sorry.
Yeah, you guys have to do it. Yeah.
Sorry. Right.
All right. So I'm gonna start over.
Fucking.
Okay, let's start with that one. Can you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Yes, I can. Yeah.
All right. Really?
Retarded, but yeah.
All right. So this is this is a video by Bible Flocks Box. This is thing we decided to do. I'll add this to the link in the my video. So I have no idea who this guy is, but Isaiah said this is entertaining, so let's check it out. So facts evolutionists don't want you to know. Okay, I would say everybody in here is pretty much evolutionist for the most part, I think. Ocean, we have no idea, but no, I mean, that's kidding. So 10 facts evolutionists don't want to know. So fact 1, the Big Bang Theory is one of the most ridiculous and practical theories for the origin of the universe. You guys don't want to know that? I mean, evolutionists don't want to know that, or is that just wrong?
Well, first off, evolutionist isn't a thing. It's a snarl word used by creationists. But more to the point, the Big Bang Theory has nothing to do with biological evolution. I mean, the Big Bang Theory explains like how the universe took its current form, like right now, from its origin. So I mean, and as far as the evidence goes, there's cosmic, background radiation. There's Hubble expansion. Also phenomena seen by a telescope that actually more or less confirms that Big Bang occurred like 14 billion years ago. So
yeah, the origin of the universe is cosmogony. Okay, the origin of the universe is a different subject than the expansion of universal space-time. So the Big Bang does not. I'm getting echo. I don't know why I'm getting echo, but again, the origin is has to do with cosmogony. So the fact he's actually relating Big Bang Theory to the origin of the universe shows a fundamental misunderstanding. And why would evolutionists want to have? Why does that have to do with anything with evolutionary theory? I have no idea. Wow. You were kidding us, eh?
Derp.
Wow. Big Bang was not an explosion. There was nothing. Where in Big Bang cosmology does it say that the universe?
No. Well. Hey, Steve. Professor Michael Bay. All right. He formulated that it could only come from an explosion. That's the only way something as epic as a Big Bang could produce a universe like this.
An explosion is an increase of material in a volume of space. By definition, it cannot be an explosion because there was nothing to explode in something. The rapid expansion was space-time itself. That was increasing its size. There was not an increase of volume of it. It was an increase of size. There was nothing for it to expand into. Nothing existed outside of that besides quantum fluctuations. When he's talking about nothing, saying the universe came from nothing, there's no evidence that there was nothing. The singularity was obviously not nothing. The singularity, that if it did existed, was something. And even if that didn't exist, space itself has something. It has quantum fluctuations. So where is he getting this idea that the universe came from nothing?
From his ass crack, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So he's wrong on those different accounts. I mean, this would be more of a fruit on the ground video, but yeah. Are you presenting it? Oh shit. You want to present it?
Yep, I'm presenting. I just had to mute.
All right. Oh. Okay, so.
So I get out of
Because nothing exploded. Nothing can explode. Well, yeah, because there was no explosion. There was no nothing. Okay.
So fucking
Wow.
stupid. That.
Isaiah,
Okay.
I'm getting a headache already, and we're already like 3 minutes in.
Okay, how about we just skip to the fact? Let's just skip the fact 2 because he's just talking bullshit. We already reviewed this one.
Yeah, yeah. The big thing is, he's talking about chaos and disorder, which has absolutely nothing to do with freaking Big Bang. Nothing. Really? The fossil record.
Yeah, all those transitional fossils, yeah, that demonstrate,
all in the right order.
They're not in the right order.
I don't see how they can say that.
They do have this right. This image actually is correct. This is not how we became to be. It's not this linear progression.
Yeah, no. This is called the March of Progress, and this picture is incorrect. There's no question about that. It should never been used. The person who developed it was for looking for a paper, a magazine, and he made it very clear that this was supposed to be a change of linear morphology, and people did not understand what he was saying because it was small print. But this linear thing is definitely completely wrong. But if you go to, I want to screen share. You're already screen sharing, aren't you? If you go to a list of primate fossils, Wikipedia, look at all those fossils that support the theory of evolution. There's literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. That's just for primates. So, yeah. Anyways. Oh, fuck me.
You stupid bastard.
Me. Isaiah, come on, man. This is.
Okay.
First
off, there's no such thing as the missing link. I mean, we found several examples that show transition divergence of species. Not just with primates, but with other organisms. So
Tic-tac being the obvious example.
Yeah, Homo erectus, Australopithecus, Homo habilis. Like. This guy needs an anthropology course. He doesn't know dick.
This guy wants a crocoduck.
Yeah, I mean, even the human record is enough, isn't it? I mean, the human history.
No. He wants a cat to dog. He wants a cat to dog or something.
Non-dog.
I don't like the term missing link, but sometimes it is applicable when you're dealing with a basal line of phylogeny. Matter of fact, Isaiah has a picture that he uses often of a what is it? Darwinicus macellus, is that how you pronounce it there, Isaiah?
Darwinius macellus.
Yeah, Darwinius macellus. So, that was a transitional fossil between haplorhines and streptoshines?
Stepsorine.
Stepsorines. So, I mean, there are. This is why I hate phylogeny. I mean, these words kill me. I admit it. I'll stick with genetics. I find it more interesting, anyways. But that was considered to be a missing link because it was linking two lines of phylogeny, but it wasn't the missing link like colloquially people think, because all fossils are links, all of them. Every one of them is transitional. He's talking about human evolution, but hey, how about we go? How about Dragnet? Because since you're screen sharing, why don't you? Can you show a picture? We don't even need to. I mean, we know there's so many different fossils we found
Yeah.
that of human skeletons. I mean, all the way from Australopithecus groups to the Homo group, we found thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of them. I mean, this is
Tripping over them.
Yeah, I mean, and they're labeled too. I mean, you can actually go and you can actually see what they're labeled and where they're stored at. You know, whether they're in the Smithsonian, where they're at. They're actually categorized. I mean, so where this guy's getting this out of his ass from is I have no.
Well, it's obvious. He's getting it from nondescript scientists from ambiguous university. Have you not heard of him?
Vaguely.
Yeah, evolution isn't a ladder; it's a tree, dipshit. Like, let's move on to the next one. Like,
be scared, evolutionists, because you remember this is information that he doesn't want you to know. That evolution does not want you to know. So.
Is anyone still here?
So you can't look at the homologies of a skull and look at the cranial size and look at the jawbones and look at the different ways that things are. I mean, if you look at a modern skull, and you look at something like Homo habilis, and you look at even
that's just an ape, Steve. That's just an ape skull.
There's a difference in size. It's like a 1350 cc compared to like 1150 and 1500. I mean, it's a huge difference.
Sorry, you need to use the YouTube app. I've forgotten your name now. You've just come back in. Were you looking at YouTube videos? You're going to click on the YouTube app. That's why we weren't talking.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, even if we don't have the full skeleton, there has to be a proportionality. I mean, if you have a skull shaped something like that's much bigger than ours, it has to have certain structure in the spinal column that has to be similar, correct? Rib cage. I mean, look at the rib cage for the Australopithecus and then look at us. It's different. It's notably different.
Even the Neanderthals. I mean, for God's sake.
So, yeah, this is... All species are transitional.
Bullshit. I got this one. There's only been two. And they weren't even accepted by scientists. They were skeptical as fuck about them. The only people that accepted them were the media, and they were filtered out by scientists and figured out to be falsehoods. So fuck off with that.
What do these people think these skulls are of? I mean, they presumably don't think they're apes because they're shown to be standing. So what do they think these fossils are of? I mean, Jesus Christ.
Hey guys.
Hold on for a second. Rumpus, are you sitting down?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you. Real quick. I'm being told by the outside chat that they can't hear the video.
I'll keep my mic on and I'll just turn up my volume so they can hear it. But I'm going to tell you guys a true story. All right. I had back when I first went to a four-year university in Louisiana, a roommate, an evangelical Pentecostal younger creationist, as my roommate. This man told me that he does not believe that humanoid fossils were actually, proto-humans. He believes that they were, and I quote, the bones of retarded people.
Wow.
I guess that's he's as smart as he sounds then.
That's like the worse than the rickets thing.
Well, he was going to be an engineer, now he's a cop. I don't know if that says anything, but anyway, I'm going to turn up my volume so.
All right, people on the outside chat, let us know if you can hear it.
And called Piltdown Man. Evolutionists used these remains to claim they had clear evidence that man descended from ape-like creatures. However, in 1953, it was proven to be a total forgery. Laboratory tests confirmed that the bones were rather recent, not ancient, and that they had been stained with bichrome to make them look old. Also, the canine tooth of the skull was found to have been filed and stained.
The Piltdown, as you said, was not by scientists. Scientists didn't make this up to try to.
No. Like, listen to what he said. He said laboratory tests confirmed that it was fake. I mean, no shit.
We knew that was fake from day one. That's the thing. Yeah, we knew Piltdown Man. It never fit into evolutionary theory. Never did, because scientists were like, "This does not work for us." Well, that's why they studied it so heavily. he's making out to appear that scientists made this to try to help out evolutionary theory, which is complete bollocks. Because it actually, if it was the way it was set up, it would actually have falsified evolutionary theory. And I think he's confusing. Is he confusing Nebraska Man with this as well? Because the tooth was from Nebraska Man that I think he's talking about, not Piltdown. Because that was a tooth that was.
Yeah. And a bigger point is that everyone already knew this. This is common knowledge. So he's the only one who's actually just now getting this.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it, that he's so backwards in his understanding of this. I mean, you can go to Wikipedia and you can look at Piltdown Man and see that it was not scientists promoting this. It was the people trying to pull a scam on scientists.
Yeah, but wasn't it endorsed by some chap in the British Museum?
Oh, you always have one idiot that probably.
Yeah, but he was in charge of some.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite as clear as I think you're suggesting. And it was because he pushed it, and then eventually I think it really, in fact, it destroyed his career when people said these people weren't harmed. He then, 20 years later, I think he refuted what had happened, what he believed in, and it wrecked him as a person.
And I think it was the
pretty much he deserved that if he lied.
There are scientists that make mistakes, and there's and it's funny is whenever you have a scientific problem, a debate between scientists and groups, one's going to win, one's going to lose. Right? I mean, so not all scientists are going to be correct. So you are going to have scientists be wrong.
Let's continue the video.
I'll include a link in the description box to a book entitled Evolution Cruncher, which goes into more detail about this and thousands of other scientific facts that discredit the theory of evolution. Fact number 3, dinosaurs did not go extinct 65 million.
Okay, he's right on this one.
I want to hear it.
Actually right. Oh my God.
In 2005, paleontologist Harry Schweitzer discovered blood vessels in the thigh bone of a Tyrannosaurus rex, which supposedly went extinct 68 million years ago. But according to the theory of evolution, this is impossible.
Hang on. Okay, the fact is correct. The dinosaurs did not go extinct 65 million years ago because we have dinosaurs living today.
Birds.
Yeah. So, but did he not say in this video right here that blood vessels were found? Is that what he said?
Yeah, he did say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Where can anybody that's listening in, and I've read Schweitzer's papers, so is everybody else here. Can you guys show me where she said that blood vessels were found?
Indeed.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit naughty, Steve, to say that dinosaurs are still alive. I think we can say that what people commonly call dinosaurs. I think we'll have to say did go extinct 65 million years ago. Although obviously we know that birds.
No. There are dinosaurs living today. There's something.
Well, yeah, but.
Rumpus, you cannot be fearful of this stuff, man. Just like the same thing about when we talk about design. We need to take back these words. Dinosaurs live today. That's
but that's like saying that we're back. I don't know, fish. Then
we are fish.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so you're going to confuse the whole dialogue if we start going down that road.
It's not a matter about confusing. It's a matter of being correct. And what you do is, what happens is we don't use the correct terminology, and we don't say monophyletically we are fish and paraphyletically we are not. Then what we're doing is we're capitulating. We're letting these creationist people take away the correct terminology. And
I'm actually not gonna deny it. I honestly thought he was gonna go with they died 6,000 years ago in the flood or some shit like that.
We might get there. He might get there. He might get there, dude.
Yeah, I think you're fighting against the common. Although I accept, the claydistic approach that we are that birds are still dinosaurs, but. I think you're creating a battle you don't need to fight here.
No, you're capitulating a battle that we need to win.
We're not going to win that one. It's not winnable.
Isaiah, is it?
But you can say they descended from dinosaurs, but you can't. I mean, you can say technically they're dinosaurs, but I think if you just say they are.
It's more than technically. They are dinosaurs. Isaiah, do we have members of the dinosaur clade living today?
Yeah, but I mean, I get what Rumpus is saying. The average person isn't going to understand statistics.
I get what Rumpus is saying, but I'm telling you what, I'm sick and tired of capitulating, because what they're doing is they'll be like saying, oh, well, let's say you have a biologist like P.Z. Myers or somebody, Dawkins, that says, oh, yeah, dinosaurs living today, and they'll be like, oh, well, you guys don't believe what P.Z. Myers are saying. You guys are saying that dinosaurs don't exist today. You've got to have consistency. You know,
life isn't consistent, unfortunately, in this sort of thing. I mean, if we go into a biology class, then yes, dinosaurs still live today. But if you're talking to people, I mean, you've got enough. I mean, we're fighting with people here who think that that's the least of the problems they've got. These facts we're being presented with, they're denying that there are humanoid fossils, and for God's sake, I mean, this is the. Let's not get into minor battles when we've got the bigger ones to fight.
But we're not just fighting against them. We're fighting against people that are listening in to both sides, and we need to be consistent. And Dragnon has to go to work, so he can't present. So can somebody else present? And yeah, I like what Dragnon said on the side. He's taken right out of the Aussie playbook. You know, don't make yourself adverse to the terms they cling to. We have to be able to take these terms back, like information and code and design and everything that they've taken away from their actual meanings and change them. I want back, because I don't think it's at all inappropriate or harmful to say that dinosaurs living today. Now, if you said something to the effect that the larger dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago, yes, you'd be correct.
Also, let's not worry about policing our language. I mean, if people who are at least scientifically literate understand what we're talking about, that's fine. Anyone else, fuck them, they're retarded. I mean, that's just the way I see it.
Yeah, and James types in the side. She said they looked like blood vessels. Yes, that's what she did say. They did look like blood vessels, and she compared the osteocytes that she's found in the samples to ostrich osteocytes, and that's why it would actually help confirm or add more evidence to the fact that dinosaurs are related to birds, because the osteocytes were extremely similar. The certain structures found in the dinosaurs are only found in birds. That confirms more that birds have a direct ancestry to dinosaurs. But she did not say they were blood vessels, James. That's the difference. This guy in this video literally just said that she said they found blood vessels. Well, looking like blood vessels and saying they are intact, non-fossilized blood vessels are two different things, including blood cells. Would everybody else agree with that?
Yeah, completely. The trouble is, if you say things like, we are fish,
right.
And these terms start to lose what's called specificity. And if you say this is a fish, then you then have to follow up with another question like, oh, actually, it's a humanoid.
No,
and suddenly these terms, the language just falls apart if you start going down this road.
The specificity would be, and this is the correct way to say it, if you want to talk about fish, then if you are saying fish are monophyletic, then we are fish. If you're saying fish is paraphyletic, then we're not fish. That's specificity.
Yeah.
That is being more specified because you're defining your parameters of what you mean by the group fish, because fish is not a taxonomic level. Fish is a group. But anyway, so can somebody present? Anybody? I guess I can. Maybe I can. Let me see if this works.
Could do, I suppose.
I'm going to try here.
I'm very surprised this isn't working for the people on looking on the view, because I was just looking at the documentation and they didn't make any noise that there wouldn't be a problem with the sound. So
yeah, I don't know why. We're hearing the sound issue, but I'm going to present. Okay, can they hear that? She was talking about the thigh bone being relatively unfossilized. Where did he get that from?
I thought you said she. Like, what, does he have a vagina all of a sudden?
Is it? Pulled that from Mr. Colon.
Yeah, there's nothing about it being mostly unfalsified. Again, I don't know if the outside people can hear us. I don't know how that works. I guess I could pull my headphones out. Maybe this way would work for sure. Hang on, let me try this. Oh, was that muted?
Yeah.
All right. Hang on.
Two images that you see here are of two possible plesiosaurs. The one on the left washed ashore in Monterey Bay, California in 1925.
Is that not working for people?
Horrible echo.
I heard it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's a horrible echo. I don't know how the outside people don't hear it.
Have we established they're still having problems?
I think so. Well, James says they can.
Oh, right. Well, okay. Yeah, but you had it on then, didn't you? Of course.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you do get an echo with it, obviously.
But they didn't. Did not hear the echo? That's the question, I suppose.
I do
Oh,
not
they
know.
did.
They did.
Drag said
they heard the echo.
about
Oh, great.
version. Yeah, in Sideshow.
So how do you get this to work?
We have to put up with the echo, I suppose.
Really?
Yep.
That can't be right. Otherwise, it'd be a pointless thing to do.
Yeah, I don't think that makes sense to me either.
Fuck the outside people.
We'll just tell you what he's saying, people, because I don't want to dick with it too much. Wow, dude, Monsanto, jeez, man, I only got 2 ears. I like to keep them.
It's alright.
Okay, so what we're going to do is, I think we're just going to tell you what this guy's saying on the outside chat. He's basically, in this one, he's saying that plesiosaurs have been found in modern times, and he's showing these two photos that, what the fuck? I don't even know what they are, but I'm sure.
Basking sharks.
Yeah, the first one's a shark. The second one, that looks like freaking, like I don't know, cloth actually.
Looks kind of like a dolphin. I don't know what it is.
But yeah, I don't know if any plesiosaurs have been found. So, I mean, I'm sure these are hoaxes and just, you know, yeah, I don't even know what to deal with
The
this.
one on the Japanese fish boat is a basking shark.
I don't even see it. I just see. Okay, I'll take your word for it. But anyways, it's definitely not a plesiosaur. So this guy's like full of crap. All right, let's go on. He says that one of the right caught off the coast of New Zealand in 1977. No, I think actually on the right, doesn't it say photo by Yano Micholdov?
Yeah, it says that. But probably like an overgrown fucking sheep, knowing the bloody Kiwis. Sheep shaggers.
I'll present. You guys are gonna get an echo, but they won't. I'll take my headphones off, so I want them to hear this.
Times. Fact number 4: evolution has occult roots. Many people don't realize this, but Charles Darwin was not the inventor of evolution. He just made it popular. The fact of the matter is, evolution has much older occultic roots. Thousands of years before Darwin, people in shamanic cultures believed that humans and animals were related. Evolution is also at the core of the Hindu and witchcraft belief system. In addition, ancient Greek philosophers spoke about evolutionary concepts. Thales of Miletus asserted that all things originated from water, and Anaximander suggested that men originated from animals of another sort.
Okay. Oh wow. Yeah, let me get the headphones on. All right. Yeah, I mean, these people had some basic evolutionary concepts, but they were not talking about the theory of evolution. They were not talking about common descent. They were not talking about. Anaximander, for example, believed that things were literally born out of a different substance. I don't believe remember what it was, but they're not talking modern science. They have nothing to do with evolutionary theory, which is saying how a species came to be. What is a culture about saying that speciation exists, that things do speciate? How is that occultish? Anybody? He's awfully quiet.
When he continues, he'll explain it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I mean, granted, these concepts are very similar going back to Anaximander, but they definitely have nothing to do with Darwinian evolution, which was Darwin's thing at the time.
Movement and Freemasonry. The New Age movement teaches that humanity is evolving to a cosmic consciousness which will enable us to attain to the godhood within us. Freemasonry teaches that through a progression or evolution of degrees, one may become God. Of course, this lie comes straight from Satan when he told Eve in Genesis chapter 3, verse 4, "Ye shall be as gods." Fact number 5, evolution.
Did you guys notice that he actually equivocated the word evolution right there? Like bad?
Mm-hmm.
Like bad? I mean, yeah, there's nothing in evolution that says that we're going to evolve to being a deity. and I would contest his Freemasonry thing as well, but that's not the point of the video. But he's basically conflating actual evolutionary theory with something to evolve generally, to change, which is not the same thing. It's a direct equivocation of what he's doing. Wow. Yeah, this guy's fucking terrible, man.
By the way, I think the sound is working. I just flipped backwards and forwards. I think it's working.
Well, I unplugged my headphones and I'm just running it through my speakers. That's why it's working.
Oh, right.
All right, so next fact. Evolution is impossible because of irreducible complexity. Oh, fuck my life. All right, let's listen to
Doesn't
this.
even go for the good example.
Because of irreducible complexity. Irreducible complexity means that certain biological systems are too complex to have evolved from simpler or less complete predecessors through natural selection or chance mutations. There is an entire series of videos which go into detail about this subject called Incredible Creatures That Defy Evolution. You can even find clips of those videos on YouTube, and they have a webpage on BibleProbe.com. They talk about animals that could not have evolved because they are too complex. One example is the bombardier beetle. The following quotes are from their webpage. The bombardier beetle defends itself by mixing chemicals that explode, firing through twin-tailed tubes that can swivel like gun turrets. The bubbling liquid that shoots out at 212 degrees Fahrenheit is enough to deter most predators. The force of the round fired should be enough to blast the little beetle into orbit, if not pieces, and it would be if it was discharged at one time. Slow motion photography has revealed that the crafty beetle actually lets go with a stream of up to 1,000 little explosions. Together, they are enough to put off would-be attackers while leaving the small defender with its feet still on the ground. There is simply no way the bombardier beetle could have evolved its sophisticated defense system over time, adding swiveling gun barrels or its repeater firing mechanism at different stages. It needed them all in one package at the same time.
Oh, this is like Dwayne Gish's thing.
That looks so wrong.
That's Gish right there.
Yeah, this is a Gish thing. Actually, I have looked into this before. I don't have the paper in front of me, but there is there is research out there that shows how the bombardier beetle came to be. And they go explain the type of chemicals that it uses. They explain the phylogeny of it. There's nothing irreducibly complex about it. This has been dismissed. How many years ago was this?
Yeah, good 5-10 years ago, wasn't it? 10 years ago.
It's been a while. And what he's saying is that, what is this about irreducible complexity about this system? If we can explain it and we can show each mechanism as it progressed through the lineage, then how is it irreducibly complex? And they have done this already. Again, I don't have it in front of me. This is the first time I'm watching this video, but I guarantee that's out there because I've seen it. I know Isaiah's seen it as well. So, yeah.
It should be added that the chemicals don't explode.
It's an exothermic reaction, isn't it?
Yeah, and the point is they come together outside the body of the. They're actually sprayed into one another, aren't they, or something? It's not as though this reaction occurs inside the animal. It actually occurs just outside it, so it's not as though it's being subjected to all this.
I thought it was a type of hydrogen peroxide with something else.
Yeah, that's right. It's hydrogen peroxide. Yeah. And then they throw in the catalyst, like and then that just as it's leaving, it throws in the catalyst into the hydrogen peroxide as it's leaving it, and therefore it all goes whop as it's being ejected. It's not as though this violent reaction is occurring inside the beetle.
Right, but what he's saying is that all these things had to come together at once. Why? There's no evidence that would ever happen. In fact, if it came all together at once, yes, it would probably falsify evolution because, and I'm talking in this term more molecular evolution than biological evolution, but there's no evidence of that.
So presumably there's some system whereby they had hydrogen peroxide doing something else for some other purpose, and then it was useful in that regard, and then something else came along, and then gradual system of things coming together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really too lazy right now to maybe I'll look to really look it up. If someone wants to look up, they've actually said where these chemicals came from. They've done the metabolic pathways for them. There's nothing magical and mystical about it. It certainly doesn't disprove evolution by any stretch of the imagination, and this was debunked a long time ago. But moving on here.
Itself up would not be around to develop a more refined firing system. A beetle that could not keep the enemy in firing range would not survive to work on more maneuverable firepower. There is simply no way a slow, gradual process will produce this beetle. This is one example of many given by incredible creatures that defy evolution. Others include the giraffe, woodpecker, and even the chicken egg. If you would like more information on those or other animals that could not have possibly evolved, click on the link to the incredible creatures that defy evolution that I have left in the description box, or look up incredible creatures that defy evolution on YouTube. Fact number 6, evolution is impossible because of the DNA species barrier. DNA doesn't allow one species to evolve into another one. In other words, there is no way, no matter how hard you try, that you can produce a cat from mating different breeds of dogs over time.
Oh, no, no, he didn't. Did he?
He did it! Oh my God!
He did it!
Oh my!
He wants dogs from cats. Kill me.
Oh, I missed that.
Oh, now I know how Fiona felt watching Drew Pearson's video. Yeah, no, he just said evolution is impossible because of the DNA species barrier, which I have no idea what the fuck that is. But he just said literally cats cannot overcome this barrier to become dogs.
What a fucking noob.
I don't even know what to say. This guy's fucking retarded.
They really do believe that evolution predicts crocoducks, don't they? Well,
yes!
That's something they think it's going to pop out. Whereas what they don't understand is if that were to happen, that would invalidate evolution.
Yeah.
That's the creationist model.
Possibility. DNA has a species barrier, which prohibits one species of animal or plant from crossing over into another one. The best that can be accomplished is the creation of different breeds within a species. Take the American English Coonhound, for example. It's a 1905 breed of dog developed from Virginia hounds, which were developed over time from dogs imported to the United States. But it's still just a dog, even though it's a relatively new breed. Also, if you look at different animals and plants in the world, they are relatively easy to distinguish. It's not hard to see that a fish, dog, cat, monkey, and human being are all different species.
Oh my God. Dogs will always have freaking dogs. I mean, God, help me out, Isaiah. I'm dying here. This is killing me. He's actually saying that a dog, even with artificial selection, will eventually produce a population of non-dogs. And he's not even noting here that humans and chimps, have 98.5% DNA similar. We have, 60 to 7% of these similar with these other items. We have 50% similar to a freaking banana. There's a reason for this. He's just kind of glossing all over and saying, "Oh, look, they're different species." Well, yeah, they are different species. But you know what? Every image in here is the different kinds of eukaryotes. So they're all different kinds of eukaryotes. So there's one kind, the eukaryotic kind, in this particular thing.
I was listening. I had to call for a cab a few minutes ago, but I find it interesting. People laugh at me every time I mention this. The kind of evolution that they're talking about isn't biological evolution. It's Pokemon evolution. That's what they're looking for. That's what they honestly believe that it is. And so if you tell them that we're not talking about Pokemon evolution, they get upset. But it's exactly what they're asking for.
Yeah, well, somehow the educational system failed this person miserably, wherever they live. I mean, this is either a troll or just somebody literally too stupid to even go understand the basics of this topic. And I think it's a combination of both. I think these people are dishonest. I really do, because there's no possible way. What's that?
I've just seen something on the bombardier beetle. I think it turns out that hydrogen peroxide is a normal metabolic byproduct in these insects, and the catalyst they have apparently is actually something they normally carry in the body of the cuticle of the insect to actually make it taste bad, and then it turns out that then when you mix them together, obviously it goes pop.
Well, yeah, we actually carry hydrogen peroxide as well, but except the difference is that we contain what's known as peroxisomes, and when we go through the Krebs cycle to, when we break down glucose, it produces peroxide, H2O2, as a byproduct.
You're right, actually. Yeah, I've seen that, actually. Yes, there is a...
For glycolysis.
But
yes.
Here's the interesting thing. They don't have that particular organelle. And so they end up using their peroxide as a defense mechanism. Like that's to me that's crazy, because it would kill us literally. But for them, it's a source of defense.
Which is exactly what I said. It's based upon the metabolic pathways they've had that has evolved over time, and I'm using that word again, molecularly evolved, not biologically evolved. And you have to kind of differentiate because.
But it's interesting. Sorry, it's interesting that there are other beetles in the in the genus that actually have the catalytic chemical in the cuticle of the insect that it uses because it tastes really bad and is useful to fend off defenders. So there is a coming together there that we can see of two independently useful traits that developed and bringing them together in a natural way.
Which evolution would predict.
Indeed.
Indeed. So I mean, he has a gross misconception there, and like I said, I knew that there were studies out there that actually explain this. But let's go back to the video.
Evolution really went on for 6 million years, like evolutionists claim, and throughout that entire time, fish evolved into land animals, and land animals evolved into other land animals.
Evolution's gone on for 4 billion years.
There shouldn't be such a clear distinction between species. We should have all kinds of transitional types of life forms around us right now, but they don't exist, which means that evolution never happened. Fact number 7. Written records don't support the theory of evolution. The last stage of evolution is said to have occurred around 80,000 years ago.
Wait.
Last stage of evolution.
Last stage? What the hell is stage of evolution? Anybody? Somebody explain to me what a stage of evolution is.
I don't know. We're producing.
Haven't you heard of the 7 stages of evolution?
I have never heard this.
There's a big sign. There's a big sign we find 80,000 years ago, and there's somewhere in the layer saying this is it. Evolution ended here.
Okay, so you've watched this video, so you already can know a little bit what he's talking about here. What the fuck is a stage of evolution?
Apparently, he has this strawman that humans are supposed to be the highest stage of evolution or something, and that's it.
Yeah, well, they love that, don't they?
Oh my god.
We're special.
Yeah, there's no stages of evolution. We're not at end stage. We're at, every stage is a beginning, middle, and end point depending on how things develop. I mean, we could go extinct tomorrow. We just have to be an extant species, but we are no different than any other freaking species. So
we've lost all our ancestors. We've all lost all our relations, haven't we? Neanderthals, the Australopithecus.
Oh yeah, we're on our own, man.
Homo erectus, apparently, in Asia, they lived until quite recently. I mean, in the scale, we had a sort of parallel development of the Homo. Whatever our direct descendant of Homo sapiens are, and the Homo erectus actually went off to us. They coexisted with us until relatively recently.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in theory, I mean, it's not going to happen. But I'm saying it is theory in biology that Homo neanderthalis could have not gone extinct. We could be living with them. They could be living in caves somewhere and be a unique species to us.
And Neanderthals, of course. Yeah, I mean, they were coexisting with them, Homo sapiens and them.
Yeah, that was only 30,000 years ago, 30 to 40,000 years ago.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so that is possible. But see, some people actually believe that we evolved from them, and therefore they vanished because we are the descendants of them. Like, no, we didn't evolve from Neanderthals. Okay, come on.
They written records of mankind.
I'm sorry. Let's revert.
The last stage of evolution is said to have occurred around 80,000 years ago.
Listen carefully here.
That's when Neanderthal man became human.
Neanderthal man became human? What the fuck?
We were shagging them, though.
What? Somebody help me here. How does a freaking Neanderthal become? Wait, first of all. Neanderthals are humans. They don't become humans. They are humans to begin with. Homo sapiens and Neanderthals were both humans. But he's saying,
both Homo.
Yeah, they're both group Homo. But I think he's implying here that Homo neanderthalis evolved to become modern humans. Is that what I'm bringing it to? Which again is just as bad and just as awful and just completely wrong. Oh my God.
We were. Do you not find it rather odd that we were shagging these things?
Only our females.
Yeah, no, they were probably pretty hot, man. I mean, and there was obviously inbreeding. I mean, some people have actually still have DNA, Neanderthals.
That's right, 4%, isn't it? 2 or 4% of us have a Neanderthal.
Yeah, it's about 2+% most places. Depends on where you're from. If you're European, So, anyways, yeah. I mean, we know there's inbreeding. We can look at the mitochondrial DNA too, and see that's what they looked at. That there has to be somewhere in our line a mixture of
Y
two
chromosome,
species.
not the mitochondria.
Was it on the Y chromosome? I'm sorry. Okay, my bad. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was on the Y and not the X.
And we've got the DNA of these Neanderthals, of course, as well as humanoids.
But the principle is still the same. I mean, Y is still paternally passed down, right?
Yeah.
So the principle is similar.
Whereas mitochondria is maternal, isn't it?
Yeah, mitochondrial DNA is passed down maternally. There's no recombination, or very little, if any, recombination of mitochondrial. I don't want to say there's none. I'm not that sure of it, but I know that there's very little, if any, recombinant mitochondrial. All right, so I mean, this guy literally thinks we evolved from Neanderthals. Okay, great. Moving on.
Written records of mankind go back only 5,000 years.
So what?
The oldest written record found to date is the Kish tablet from the ancient Sumerian city of Kish. Do you mean to tell me that man has been in the same stage of development and intellect for 80,000 years, and it took him 75,000 years to learn how to write? Something doesn't add up here. However, if we were created by the God of heaven around 6,000 years ago, like the Bible claims, that would make more sense.
We have pictographs going back 10,000 years, and we have sculptures going back 40,000 years.
That's right. There's that sculpture of that big-breasted woman that's 30,000 years old.
So
about a few inches high.
Completely obliterates what he's saying right here. You're exactly right.
8. Evolution is a religious belief.
Oh, fuck.
Evolution is just as much, if not more so, of a religious belief than Christianity and biblical creation. The reason being is because it takes more faith to believe in evolution than it does biblical creation. For those that believe in biblical creation, at least we have a written record that states God revealed the act of creation to Moses. In other words, we have the testimony of someone that was actually there, God. For the theory of evolution, there was no one there to observe the origins of the universe, so it's all guesswork. Not to mention, the belief in creation is just more logical than evolution. For example, doesn't it make more sense to believe that all of this life on Earth, full of complexity and design, was created by an intelligent designer like God? Evolutionists, however, will not admit that their belief is a religion. Why? My opinion is because it would violate the First Amendment of the Constitution, which prohibits the government from supporting any one religion, and evolution is taught in public schools in the United States. Therefore, just like public schools are forbidden from leading students in prayer because prayer is a religious matter, they would also be forbidden from teaching evolution.
Evolution has nothing to do with the origin of life, dumbass. I can't do this, Isaiah. I'm literally just giving myself a headache here.
I mean, we've got the best historical record for evolution you can have in every cell of our bodies. We've got on a historical record all the way back to our eukaryotic past. We know that we share 50% of our genes with a banana, for God's sake.
Yeah, and evolution is not based upon faith. There's no faith involved. It's based upon evidence. And we don't say, hey, we started off saying, hey, we came from prior species, we came from other primates. No, that's not how it worked. The evidence pointed us that direction. The evidence came first. We said, hey, look, what are these similarities? Why do we have these extant species now? Why do they have all kind of similar DNA and commonality? And before even DNA, we could look at the morphologies. And we said, what would explain this? Well, common descent would explain this.
By the way, I've just written a book that describes where we came from and where life came from. Therefore, that must be much better than the record in our DNA and the fossil record. Now, if it just hangs around for 2,000 years, it'll suddenly gain credibility.
Yeah, you'll be worshipped. So, I mean, how it is a religious belief is completely beyond my ability to fathom, because it is where the evidence is indicating. It is formulated by evidence that we observe and witness. There's nothing religious about it.
We've concluded something from the evidence, not the other way around.
Correct. Yeah, and he's not even refuting the evidence. He's basically he's having this incredulity here that's saying, we believe that this happened. Well, no, we don't believe this happened. We know it happened because the evidence supports it. Just like we know a crime was committed because the evidence supported the fact that the crime occurred. We don't look at. Go ahead.
And this accusation that evolution's a religion, I think they're just obviously trying to contaminate us with this religious label. But surely the key ingredients of being a religion is that you believe in some sort of supernatural deity that has all sorts of control and presumably a sort of personal God that you can interact with and all sorts of other sort of mystical, supernatural things, which are all key elements to a religion, and we don't have any of that.
It's an attempt to poison the well.
Yeah, spot.
Not necessarily. Because again, if you take yourself and put yourself in the position where God is supposed to be, then you become the God of your own religion.
You're all crackly.
Not to mention that when you're talking about these types of things, evolution supposedly happening over billions of years, that's not scientific. We can't test that.
Well, we can actually.
When you've got a fossil, is something was alive and now it's dead. That's it.
Christian Hillbilly, does evolution happen today?
If you're talking about speciation, yes.
I'm not talking. Did I say speciation? I said that the word evolution happened today.
Well, again, there's many different definitions of evolution. I need to clarify. Are you talking about speciation, that changes in the species or kinds of animal? Or are you talking molecules to man evolution?
No such thing as molecules to man evolution. I'm talking
where the fuck did that come from?
Actually, there is, because that's what you believe in.
No.
Creators, you believe that everything is self-assembled.
Christian Hillbilly, I'm asking you the question one more time, and you have one more chance to answer it fully. Do you accept that evolution, according to evolutionary biology, the way we all understand it, the way everybody is taught in the entire world, takes place today? Are you going to equivocate and say something else, or are you going to just acknowledge that evolution happens today?
Once again, Steve, let's go ahead and be honest. When we look at this, you can look at the same evidence I look at, and I'm going to come up with different conclusions than you do.
I'm not asking about the conclusions.
With their own presuppositions.
Okay, I'm asking you one more time, yes or no. Does evolution, according to evolutionary theory that's taught all around the world, occur today? If you answer anything yes or no, I'm gonna boot you again, Christian, because I'm not dealing with your nonsense. Answer yes or no. It's a simple question.
No.
Okay, well, at least you're honest about that. Okay, so if it doesn't occur today, then what is it when we look at a species and we say, hey, look, this population has a change of allelic frequency?
Again, that's not what we're talking about.
That is the theory of evolution.
Talk about how you got fossils, molecules of man evolution. Let's do that.
Okay, fine.
Or show me an increase. Show me any increase in information.
All right, fine. I tell you what.
From cat to dog.
I tell you what, Christian, find me. I tell you what. Find me a biology book that teaches that evolution has molecules to man. Find me one and we'll discuss it.
They all do that.
Well, show me one. Go look. Find me one. I'll go with it.
Yeah, well, we know what he means. Hold on. You basically mean abiogenesis combined with evolution. We all know what we're trying to say here, so let's stop messing about.
You're all stating abiogenesis doesn't have to do with evolution. Yes, it does. Because you believe that all things started off with a single ancestor, a single amoeba or whatever it happened to be, and it grew and got more complex over time. Is that not correct? Is that not what you believe?
It's not correct.
Well, then go ahead and educate me.
Yeah, Christian, we've all told you what we believe, and every time you come into our hangout, you conveniently forget what you've been told from the last one. Okay? Evolution, the theory of evolution, is a function of population genetics. Do you agree or disagree?
I would, if it's in this time where we can observe. We don't know what happened in the past.
That's not my question.
When it comes to population genetics, we know that the information had to come from somewhere for natural selection to occur.
That's not my question. My question is, evolution requires population genetics. You cannot have evolution without populations. Is that correct?
You can't have a population without the genetics. Correct?
Correct. There's a tautology there. So can you have evolution without population?
Well, once again, you cannot have that because the information is in the genome for the animal to adapt to its environment. So where did that information come from?
I'm going to do a Darwin's deity here. Good. So you're agreeing with us that in order to have evolution, you have to have genes.
Absolutely.
Okay, then explain to me how abiogenesis that doesn't have genes has to do with evolution.
Well, that's what I mean. It's so ignorant, I don't see how you can take that
position.
No, you're because you're the ones taking the position that we came from a common ancestor, an amoeba, and now we combined and got more complex all the way up to the manager of the Quickie Mart.
You've just posited that abiogenesis has to do with evolution, did you not?
It does.
Okay, then evolution only deals with genes. Where's the genes in abiogenesis?
I didn't say it only deals in genes. I said it has genes. You have to have genes in order to have the organism, and you agreed with that.
Yes, you have to have genes to have evolution. So if
wait a minute, hold it. That's what I'm asking. Where did the genes come from? Where did the information come from? You're asking the same question I'm asking you. You're just posing it differently.
No,
where did the information come from?
Can I ask a question?
And how did it know how to self-replicate?
Christian, do you have a problem with us evolving from something like you said, an amoeba? Do you have a problem with man coming from there, or is your problem with getting to the amoeba from molecules? Where's your problem exactly, or both of them problems?
I have a problem with people lying and calling it the truth.
No. Which
let me
explain. On our schools and calling it fact. That's what I have a problem with.
Let me explain the flaw in his reasoning here. He just said, if you guys notice, he just said evolution requires genes. He said that, right? We all agree?
Do I know?
Yep.
You said that evolution requires genes.
Well, I don't think he understands what he's saying.
And I said you have to have genes to have the animal or the organism. Is that not right? So again, we agreed on that. I didn't say that was the only thing.
Hang on,
there's also information. Information is required. The information in the genetic code is required for the organism to be what it is.
Christian Hillbilly, can you have evolution without genes? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Okay, so you just said you cannot have evolution without genes. Abiogenesis deals with chemistry, not genes.
Again, we're not talking about abiogenesis chemistry. We're talking about where you think we all come from. Now, do you disagree, sir, that we come from a common ancestor millions of years ago?
I do not disagree with that, but you're deflecting from what my point is.
Topic. So now you're saying that you have a common ancestor from millions of years ago. What was that common ancestor?
It was what do you mean, what was it? It was a type of protobacteria.
Okay, protobacteria. So there you go. You're saying the same thing I am. No. You're just calling it something different.
No, they had genes.
Yeah, Steve, this argument about genes is irrelevant. He doesn't even accept that we came from a single-celled organism. Let's concentrate on the terms we both understand.
It is not irrelevant. It's very contingent to the point here because he just literally said, to have evolution, you must have genes.
Yeah, I know what he said, but he doesn't understand what...
Let me finish so as people listening understand why Christian Hillbilly is wrong. He just said evolution has to have genes, but at the same breath, he said molecules to man. Molecules don't have genes.
I know, but I'm just saying he's not capable of understanding it. So if we just focus on...
You have a common ancestor, and it's from goo to you by the way of the zoo. Is that correct?
Yeah, right, hold on. If we can just focus on the area that we do agree, if we forget the genes thing, just say he doesn't accept that we evolved from a single-celled organism. Let's just focus on that argument.
We know that, Rumpus. We know that.
If we're getting mixed up in the abiogenesis argument, if we can just dump the abiogenesis problem and then get him to cope with the single-celled organism to us, let's focus on that where we are talking about genes and things, and then he's not accepting that process, and then we
have to understand, Rumpus, that what he's talking about, molecules to man, is not evolution. That's what the first thing he brought up.
Yeah, I know, but
some people call it evolution. Some people call it macroevolution.
No, sir. I just explained to him why molecules to man is not evolution. He has a contradiction here. He first says that to have evolution.
I'm sorry. I thought you were.
No, if you just said to have evolution, you have to have genes. Molecules do not have genes. Therefore, molecules to man is not evolution. Simple logic.
I didn't say it only had to have genes. See,
I didn't say only, but it has. I didn't say only.
Guess what?
I didn't say only.
Are just that they're molecules. Are there not molecules in genes?
Do molecules have genes?
Excuse me, I gotta put the leash on the dog.
This is called fallacy of composition.
Steve, we could avoid this argument about molecules to genes if you just stuck to the argument about us evolving from a single-celled organism, and then you wouldn't have.
Right, Rumpus, but you're missing the point again.
No, I'm not. I completely understand the point you're trying to make, but you're making the argument more difficult. If we were able to get, for instance, if we could get him to accept evolution from an amoeba or something like the single-celled organism, that would be a huge step forward. At the moment,
he won't do that. No,
but that's our first task. Let's deal with the immediate problem, and then we can go to the abiogenesis issue.
Christian Hillbilly is a lost cause, Rumpus. This is not for Christian Hillbilly. This is for other people that ever watch this video. Hillbilly is lost. He doesn't understand basic science. Okay, basic. I mean,
but all you're just saying, you are having a to and fro about whether he understands the genes are involved in abiogenesis or not, and it's just getting nowhere. Whereas at least we can argue about something he does agree with, that he understands that genes
But we all agree that he has a contradiction. He cannot say molecules demand is evolution because molecules don't have genes. When he said to have evolution, you must have genes. You can have other things. I didn't say only.
Yeah, but he doesn't understand what the genes are.
Correct, but that doesn't
Are
matter.
there not molecules and genes?
So if molecules do not have genes, molecules demand is not in evolutionary theory.
Are there molecules and genes?
That's a fallacy of composition. Molecules are in genes, but molecules do not have genes.
Wait a minute. Are there not molecules in genes?
But not the reverse.
I'm just asking a question, Steve.
Yes,
are they?
Yes.
Thank you.
But do molecules?
Molecules to man does fit.
No, molecules would have to have genes. Do molecules have genes, Hillbilly? Do molecules have genes? No.
I just know they're really tiny, and it makes the rhyme sound really good. Molecules to man.
Really
I'm going to
tiny.
stick with it because it's the fact. That's what you believe. You believe that we came from a common ancestor, some kind of green slime, and that evolved into us. That doesn't work.
Wait. Hillbilly, slime is algae, and pond scum is algae. These are things that require chlorophyll. They're actually a type of similar to plants, but they use photosynthesis. Can you show me in any evolutionary biology textbook that man evolved from an organism that was chlorophyll based?
You can't show any place where man has evolved. Not a single place. No, there's all kinds of what people like to point to as evidence, but science does not.
Hillbilly, he asked you where
Science did not point to anything of the sort.
Hillbilly, you're deflecting the question. I'm asking you to show in any textbook where that claim is made.
And
I'm not going to know the answer to that question. I think it's a pointless question. Can I have a go? Can I have a go?
Works and at all.
Hold on. Can I have a go?
Yes, one second. So, Hillbilly, you cannot find a single textbook that supports your claim that this is what we believe and this is what is taught.
Oh, I've got textbooks I had, yeah.
Such as?
There you go. There you go. Big one.
When I was in school, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, it was like that. But guess what?
No.
They've gone away from that because they don't understand that. So, sir, can you tell me?
Here's my challenge to you. Wait, Hillbilly, don't mute him. Stop it muting him.
Now, wait a second. How can information, period, come from a non-intelligent source, and how can more information come into the genome that can make it evolve, please?
We're not talking about information. I want you to. Here's my
talking about evolution.
No, guys, let me do this, and then you guys can have at it. Hillbilly, I have a challenge for you. My challenge to you to find in any credible scientific textbook that's used in school that says man came from an organism that was chlorophyll based. Do you agree? Do you accept that challenge?
I'm not going to do that. I'll find you evidence that says that, but not going to limit me to any source.
Yeah, okay, so there you go. There you go. It's all yours, Rumpus. He just said he will not use a scientific source.
No. I have scientific sources. See,
yeah, but there's no way you can ask a question like go and find.
Science doesn't say anything. Only scientists.
Find that one that comes across. Hillbilly, do you believe that we evolved from a chimp-like creature?
No.
Right. Okay. So there's the big problem. Right. So here's the problem. That's the key one we can focus on.
We were created as men. We didn't evolve from a lower creature. We were created as men.
Okay. So what do you think all these humanoid fossils that we've got littered around Africa and everywhere else that demonstrate a gradually
they're rickets.
No, they don't demonstrate anything of the sort. What it demonstrates is that people who pick these things up have very vivid imaginations, number one, because when you find something on the ground, when it is a fossil, you don't have any more information about it. Only thing you know is that it was alive and now it's dead. And 99% of these things are laid down by sedimentary layers of water all over the world.
What?
All over the world. So it actually meets up what we would expect to see for evidence of Noah's flood.
Really?
Right.
So what is a sedimentary layer?
That's when you have stuff in the water, you shake it up real good, you got your heavy stuff goes down the bottom, all that other stuff stays close to the top.
No, that's sedimentation. A sedimentary layer is laid down by a leading edge of water. Okay, like for example, gypsum or feldspar. It requires a leading edge to do so. It's a process of sorting out the heavier material to have a layer of a similar type of mineral. Okay, you're talking about sedimentation. Show me if you had a global flood where the leading edge would be to lay down distinctly different layers of composite material, like I said, gypsum or feldspar, any other type of sedimentation. What's that?
Have you ever seen the Grand Canyon?
Yes, I have, and I'm quite familiar.
Isn't that an awesome place?
Yeah. Explain to me how
that is evidence of the flood of Noah. Because once you go into there is many places in the canyon where you can see trees going up through multiple so-called millions of years of strata. Oh, it doesn't, because trees would decay and rot away.
Yeah, you're talking about proselyte trees, but that's not the Grand Canyon. Those are in swamps and bogs.
No, that's actually the Grand Canyon.
If you look at the disconformities of the Grand Canyon, because it was called unconformities, you'll see that there's certain parts of it that are eroded by erosion. Erosion can only occur after long periods of time. Erosion will not occur if you have things just by sedimentary layers and by wind, or excuse me, by water. The hydrolysis would not work for that. So how do you explain the disconformities, the paraconformities, and the unconformities in the Grand Canyon that distinctly show that it was not laid down at one time?
Well, sir, I'm going to say that whatever you were looking at ain't what I was looking at. Because the examples that I saw had the trees either completely upright or slightly tilted to one side, and there was visible layers all the way up to the top. Now, again, when you've got something like that, you've got no leg to stand on that could have been that tree could have been there for millions of years. It don't work.
Well, again, look at disconformities, and then you can look at the proselyte trees, because we've already explained those before. But I want to get back to the bacteria. So you're not going to take my challenge to find any scientific textbook taught in school that claims we came from what you call it.
I'm not going to let you limit me on my source of input.
No, you're saying that it's taught in school. Is this taught in school? Did we learn that? All the people here that know evolution, did we learn this in school?
I tell you what, they do teach that crap in school. They do teach evolution in school.
No. Did they teach that man came from what you call it? What do you say, slime?
Molecules to man. Yes, they do.
Okay, find me a textbook.
Just like what you believe.
Okay, find me a textbook and let's look at it.
They don't say molecules to man, though.
Oh, how do they teach it if they don't say it?
Mm-hmm. They say common ancestry probably was some kind of green virus or something like that.
Virus.
It all got more complex and got more complex until we became human beings.
So if this is taught, show me the syllabus. Come on, Christian Hillbilly. Take my challenge. Show me the syllabus.
I'm sitting there telling you the truth.
No, you don't.
The truth is that's what they teach these kids.
Here's your chance. Shut us up. Show us your claim. You made the claim.
I don't need to make a claim. I don't need to try to show you nothing. You know that's what's going on.
You can't back it up.
Christian. But Steve, it is taught that we have abiogenesis, and then from that we have evolution. What are you disputing exactly?
That's two different things. He's talking.
Yeah, I know it is two different things, but they do teach that those two processes occur, and he's just confused about the difference between them. So the problem here is, so I mean, just.
So, Christian, you have made.
Hey, one second. We also talk. Christian Hillbilly, you know what stellar nuclear synthesis is?
You're talking way too fast, Steve.
Do you know what stellar nucleosynthesis is?
Nope.
It's where heavier complex elements are being generated in stars. This is where everything you in your body came from a star. So if you want to say we evolved from stars, that would be much more correct than anything else. But I'm saying molecularly, not evolution of biology. They're two different things. But molecularly, every atom in your body was generated in a star. To say that as being taught is absolute fact. So say that, because that is what's taught.
No,
that's not the area of problem, Steve. I don't quite understand where you're going with this. The problem is he doesn't understand evolution. He doesn't understand the most basic. You're complicate.
Rumpus, we know his limitations. We know he is on a second grade education in science.
Yeah, so why asking these really tricky things when he doesn't even? We haven't got him over the first hurdle.
I'm asking him so I can explain to him what would be a better way of saying it. If he wants to say you believe, he's talking about our beliefs, Rumpus, and we've corrected him on our beliefs. Okay, he does not get to tell us what we believe. If he says you believe that your atoms came from a star, then I'd be yes, absolutely, I believe that.
Well, his charge was that in schools, people being taught molecules to man, and in effect, although he's calling that evolution, we are taught in schools there's abiogenesis and then there was evolution, but he's missed out that little the two-faced thing. So he's effectively, in a sort of way, in his sort of small brain head, he's sort of right. So let's not fight over that.
But he's calling it biological evolution.
Yeah, I know. But in terms of the big problems he's having, that's a tiny issue. He's not even accepting basic evolution.
Jay, you want to toss in here real quick while I go get a drink? I don't have too much longer. I kind of want to finish this video. We only got like 5 more minutes on it. Can we do that?
Yeah.
And then Jay, can you wait 5 minutes? Let's just finish this video so I can get something to drink, and then you can go from there. Cool, guys? Yay? Okay.
Since evolution teaches survival of the fittest and that we were not created by God, that means that we are not subject to God's laws, or any other laws for that matter. Instead, it's only the strong that survive by any means necessary. Darwin also taught racism. He claimed that some races were more evolved than others and therefore more intelligent. And this line of reasoning has led to some devastating consequences throughout history. Darwinian evolution was the driving force which led Hitler to first sterilize and then exterminate mentally and physically handicapped individuals in Germany in his eugenics program in 1939. It was actually called the Action T4 program. It authorized specific doctors and officials to carry out mercy deaths.
All right, Jay, do you want to take this one? Because this is so god-awful that I don't even want to touch it.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead and take this one, because this is absurd.
Okay, wow. I don't even think I remember everything that's wrong with it. Just to begin with, natural selection, when you're talking about survival of the fittest, you're talking about that which is most fit for the environment, not that which is the fiercest, the strongest, or the most vicious. One of the examples I often use is the snowshoe hare. The snowshoe hare turns white in winter. That makes it more fit for its environment than other hares or rabbits that don't turn white in the winter. So that's not making it bigger, stronger, or more of a badass. It just ensures its survival. Survival of the fittest does not only affect the species' survival, its ability to survive, but also its ability to reproduce. That is just as strong, actually stronger, really, because if you don't reproduce, you don't leave any progeny. So an animal could, or even a group of animals within a species, could have a favorable mutation, but if it doesn't favor breeding, maybe their pheromones are off, maybe their sperm count is low, egg fertility is low, then it's not more fit. In most species, but if an animal is very violent, very fierce, that's not a good survival characteristic. In a social species, it's going to cause dissension within the group, and that individual's probably going to get offed by the other members of its pride or whatever. If it's a solitary individual, that's not very helpful either, because if you decide to kill everything around you, you're not going to have anything to eat, and then you're going to starve and not pass on those nasty genes to the next generation. So survival of the fittest is completely misunderstood by some, even though if you read Darwin and you read his contemporaries, you will see they had a really full understanding of what it meant. It meant that you could camouflage yourself better. It meant that you were faster. Maybe if one jackrabbit, which are actually hares, is faster than another, the old saying, I don't have to be able to outrun the bear, I just have to be able to outrun you. Well, the same thing goes with jackrabbits. It doesn't have to be able to outrun the coyote, it just has to be able to outrun the other jackrabbits. So that jackrabbit is going to survive and has a greater chance of breeding, and if its speed is genetically related and inheritable, it will pass that on to its offspring. And anyone who's ever seen a jackrabbit run knows they're pretty freaking fast. I have this gigantic one that lives across the street. I see that thing, and the first thing you think is it's a dog. And then you go, no, dogs don't have ears like that. That's the biggest freaking jackrabbit I've ever seen in my life. So that, just to start with, yeah, that's not what survival of the fittest means. Secondly, Darwin was not a racist. Not at all. if you look at, a lot of people point to, survival of the species and favored races, and if you go to, I think it's page 7, that's where Darwin speaks about the races of cabbages. If you actually read Darwin, rather than take something from creationist websites or anti-Darwin websites that, because some of them aren't even creationists, they just think that Darwin, fostered racism and that's where it all comes from. You will see that Darwin wrote about how all the races blend into each other. And how do you find a fixed point? I've commented before about, I don't have my notes up right now, but I could find it easily. Darwin talked about the races or species of human, and that some people divided them into 2, some 3, some 4, some 5, some 6, some 7, all the way up to 62. And his point was, and he lists all the people, by the way, I've looked up all these people, I've even read most of them, although the ones that are in French are a little difficult. I have to pop them into Google Translate. And they had different attitudes towards what race meant. For some, it was just a convenient label. For some, it was just like geographical. If I'm talking about this group of people because they're geographically over here, didn't have much more meaning than that. For others, it was more serious. And for others, when you get to the 60 and 62, they're dividing people linguistically. And Darwin's point was, well, how do you determine what a race is when we're all human? Darwin was far from a racist. If you bother to read Darwin, you will know that.
All right, I gotta move on. I gotta move on to finishing this video.
Okay.
Here. Okay. So hang on.
That's good enough. Yeah.
Those the state deemed unworthy of life. Hitler considered them to be useless eaters. Over 70,000 people were murdered, including children, and the technology used to kill them was transferred over to the killing of the Jews in concentration camps during the Holocaust. Hitler was motivated by Darwin's views on racism and survival of the fittest to exterminate the Jews. He believed that by doing so, he would advance the human race in the cause of evolution. 6 million Jews lost their lives, half of which died in horrifying concentration camps. Another famous individual, Jeff...
By the way, there's no indication he actually even knew of anything that Darwin taught whatsoever. There's just no evidence of that whatsoever.
You muted, Steve.
Yeah, I know. Am I muted now? I was just saying that there's no evidence that Hitler had any knowledge of what Darwin and evolution was or theory of evolution, and this is just absurdity trying to relate these things to an actual scientific theory. You can change the word to gravity, and this would have just as little to do with it, absolutely nothing to do with it.
NBC that evolution cheapens life and leaves you accountable to no one.
So
he also went on to say
an idiot who
that
didn't
he had
understand
accepted Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior after his father sent him some literature about creationism, which exposed the lies of evolution. On November the 28th, 1994, Jeffrey Dahmer was beaten to death in prison. Fact number 10. The theory of... By
the way, I should say that there's no evidence that he actually supported evolution. I mean, obviously he knew about it. I should rephrase that, but there's no evidence that he supported it. In fact, I think, as Jay pointed out, that he actually was as an antithesis to it. I mean, he did have a lot of his books burned, correct, Jade?
Yeah, I had to unmute myself, yes.
Yeah, I said that instead.
Yeah.
Okay, continue on.
Not a fact. Sometimes when I read comments on websites about the theory of evolution, I find adamant evolutionists stating evolution is a fact. If it's a fact, then it wouldn't be called a theory.
All right, I want to talk about this one real quick before we go further, if I can, because there is some merit to this one in some ways, and I want to clarify because I don't think we've ever really got too much into this one before. To say evolution is a fact technically is incorrect, okay? And this goes to a very technical point of view. To say evolution is a fact is a category error, because a fact is a discrete piece of information. To make that statement correct, you would have to say evolutionary theory is based upon factual information. That would be okay. You can say that evolution occurs is a fact, is a correct statement. But you can't really technically say evolution is a fact because of the way classifications is of what a fact is. But we all know colloquially what it means. Okay, and this is beyond the scope of what Hillbilly would ever understand. But there is some argument to say that it is kind of inappropriate to say evolution is a fact. That does not mean that evolution doesn't occur. It doesn't mean that everything isn't the same. It just means it's a category error of how we describe what a fact means. Now, he also said in here that it's a theory. Well, all scientific things that explain observations are theories. They never become proven. Fact, again, would be that there's a change in Velic frequency, as Jay points out, but the theory is that these are what are the processes to explain the change in Velic frequency. It's no different than germ theory. We theorize that germ theories cause disease. We know germs cause disease. Causing disease by germs is a fact, but it's still a scientific theory. It can never be anything other than a scientific theory. So that too is a classification error. Does anybody got anything want to add on that before I continue?
Well, I will, because again, evolution doesn't even meet the criteria to be called even a hypothesis, because there's nothing that is repeatable. You can't see evolution take place. There's no testing of it. You can't test it.
Well, hold on. This is a contradiction to what you said before. Before you said you could see evolution.
Yeah, evolution takes place right now.
No, I tell you what. That's why I want to get this clear. The clarification, speciation, or molecules, or excuse me, alleles that change over time in a generation, we would expect to see that as creationists. But that's not what you're all talking about. Sure. You're all talking about evolution taking place over long periods of time where the creature goes from a state of disorder to a state of order. That is what I call molecular demand evolution. So again, that is never testable, never provable.
Listen, my challenge.
Just a second. He's speaking also of entropy.
I know.
Where's entropy? How's that playing a role in this?
Yeah, show us again in a scientific textbook where it talks about order and complexity for biological systems, and why that's impossible using entropy. I would love to see that, Christian.
Well, it's impossible because you don't have any information. You won't deal with where the information came from to begin with, and now you've got an increase of information to go from something that is a slug to a virus, to an amphibian, to a mammal, to a mine. Can you show me any evidence at all, just one, between the mammal, between the amphibian and the mammal, or just any two kinds? I'd love to see that.
Both are made out of periodic cells. Next.
Yeah, there's so many words that are wrong in that, Christian. I don't even know where to begin. I'm going to move on to the video, because if you think that a slug can become a virus, you're literally, you're actually worse than I thought, and I would say that you're not even second.
Isn't that what you believe? We all evolved from.
Can I get a timestamp here? Here's Christian Hillbilly literally thinking that evolution says that a slug can become a virus.
Yes.
I'm asking you, do you not believe that we have a common ancestor that was some kind of slug or virus? You said it was something like that earlier.
But we didn't evolve from that, you dense fuck.
You know what a common ancestor you know what a common ancestor is?
Yeah, I know what my common ancestor is. Okay. My common ancestor is Adam and Eve.
No. Oh my God. Christian. Well, anyways, Christian Hillbilly literally said that a slug, according to evolution, can become a virus. That's his extent of knowledge on this topic. We're going to move on to the next slide.
I'm sitting here trying to get you explain to me how you can go from nothing.
We're moving on. Hang on, Christian.
Breathing, viable animal with DNA that is if you were to take it.
This is not a fact.
Got 2 minutes left in the video.
To observe it, and no one can prove it beyond the shadow of a doubt. If it was a fact, it would be called the fact of evolution, the theory of evolution. Not to mention, once analyzed by any thinking Christian, it becomes apparent that the theory of evolution is simply an attempt to explain away the existence of God so that people who don't want to submit to the authority of God in their lives could have some justification for not doing so. But
I'm pretty well done with that video. Most people that accept and know evolution are actually religious, so that just falsifies that claim altogether. So anyways, that's the video I wanted to go through that Isaiah brought up. I mean, obviously it's fruit on the ground, easy to dispute. How do I exit this? There you go. So anyways, going back to what Christian Hillbilly is saying. Yeah,
can I ask him a quick question?
Yeah, you can ask him anything you want. I just want Christian Hillbilly to know. One of the worst things you can do is tell people what they think. We tell you what we think, then you can argue from there. But when you start
That's
telling
why
us,
I was asking you.
yeah, we do not believe that we can evolve from a slug or a virus. Okay.
Yeah, but he's asking whether or not we've effectively evolved from a single-celled animal. Just because he can't get the right word, I don't think there's much point in picking him up on the details of what he's actually saying.
We evolved from a single cell or single cells. I'm more inclined single cells, but that's up to the individual. There's evidence for both.
Huh? So my question to Christian is, what? Hold on, Christian.
Yes.
Just so I can gauge where you're at. What is a virus?
What's that got to do with the price of rice in Albegoria?
I just want to know.
Oh.
Because we're talking about biological sciences here. What is a virus?
It's something you can catch and get a bad cold. How's that? I don't. You know what? I know where I'm at. I know about how things work. And when you're talking about a complex being, when you're talking about a frog or a fire chief, there are complicated systems in each one of those organisms, and both of those organisms have information in there, it's called DNA, that tell it what to do. Little micro machines. Now that screams design to me. What do you think?
Yeah, it is design. Christian.
I mean, so you're saying that it's complex. What defines complexity for a biological system?
Yeah, what defines complexity? And yeah, I think everybody in here would agree it's designed. We all agree upon that.
Well, who's the designer?
Nature.
That's
Nature doesn't design anything,
sure
sir. Information can never come from a non-intelligent source. Nature does not work.
Wait, hold on. Wait. Let's get something. So what defines a simple organism and a complex one? Since you mentioned complexity earlier.
What's the difference between simple and complex? No, it's hard to hear. What he asked you was, and let me reiterate on this, obviously you don't know what teleonomic means because that is teleonometry, a teleonomy. So when you have a teleonomic design, nature is a teleonomic designer because to have a design, you need a designer. That is what the whole process
is. Nature intelligent?
Does not require it to be.
Is nature intelligent?
It's not required to be.
It is if it's going to put information into our genome. Sure. It is if it's going to put so much together in our genome that if you take that one strand of DNA and stretch it out, it'd be 6-7 foot long.
Look at the word teleonomic because
I don't need to. Because I know what you believe is a blatant lie of common sense. Have you ever seen something give rise to nothing?
So Christian, explain the answer to
a cat become a dog.
Holy fuck. I'm going to address that in a second, but I want you to answer Drag's question because, Jesus Christ, if you think dogs can come from cats, you're a bigger idiot than I've ever even imagined in evolutionary theory. So answer Drag's question. His question was, what is the difference between a simple and a complex system biologically?
Biologically? Would probably be something like simple would be, I can't call anything simple because they're so well designed. Even the so-called simple cell. Is so well designed. It has so many different pieces that come together. Even micro machines and micro factories in there make everything work. So I can't really think you can come up with something that's a simple life form. I don't think there is such a thing.
So you have no mechanism to determine which the difference between simple and complex is what you're saying.
Okay, let's put it this way. Simple is a rock. How's that?
That's not a biological.
That's simple. Rock don't get no simpler than that.
Do you think rocks are alive?
A living organism. How's that?
Do you think rocks are alive?
No, but I imagine you do.
Okay, well, he just said that biological organisms, and now you just said rock. Therefore, you think rock is alive.
A biological organism that would not be under the classification of advanced because it all carries information. They all carry the wherewithal to digest that information and perform the functions. All of that DNA comes together for a function.
So
it has a purpose. So when
not all of it.
Okay, let's put it this way. How about something that has DNA? How's that?
Hang on. So you just agreed, though, you have no mechanism to determine a simplistic organism from a complex.
I would say, sir, that all organisms that are life forms are complex.
So there's no such thing as a simple organism?
No such thing.
So amoeba is not a simple organism?
Can you make a simple organism?
We're not asking who can make one. We're asking if they exist.
Can you make one?
Of course I can't make one, because they exist.
How about a rose? Would you consider a rose a simple a life form.
I'm asking you to determine the difference.
Okay, let me go ahead and retract the rock thing. Let's go ahead and look at rose. I'm going to say that a rose is a simple life form. Now you're saying it's not much but a simple life form. Can you make one?
Again, what is your limiting factor? Why is a rose simple and a dog not? What makes a difference? Give me the limiting factors.
The amount of parts that are working, the amount of information, all these different things. But again, you're not going to deal with the question, are you? Where did the information come from for the rose?
I've got a point about information. I've got a point about information. Imagine I had a book that had all the letters of the just a stream of letters, of random letters in them, Christian. So I've got a book of hundreds of pages, and I've just got a series of letters. And then I started eliminating, as I went along, letters, leaving words. And then gradually I ended up with, and then would eliminate words that didn't make sentences until eventually I ended up with sentences. And that's what natural selection does. It starts off with
Let me ask you. Oh, no, hang on.
Let me finish. I got to finish in 10 seconds. Let me finish.
Where did the letters come from?
Let me finish.
Shut the fuck up.
10 seconds. Now, imagine that the natural selection is doing much the same thing with the DNA in your genes. The genes in your DNA. It's slicing off the ones that don't do anything, leaving you with useful things. And we call that information when they start doing something useful. Now it's your turn.
Where did the letters come from? Because, again, in order for that to work, not only do you have to have the letters, you have to have them arranged in a specific fashion. Oh, and by the way, there's billions of these things in our bodies. Yeah, and guess what? There's not enough time in all of creation.
Right, now, hold on. You ask a valid question. You ask a valid question. Where these letters come from? Now, that is something we haven't fully understood. That's what abiogenesis is trying to sort out, is where the DNA was first constructed. We know there's a sort of root that other chemicals called RNA, and then they were derived from replicating molecules.
Where did RNA come from? Where did replicating molecules come from?
Yeah, indeed, that's a good question. Yes, a good question. And we don't fully understand where RNA came from, but we do know that self-replicating molecules could have existed in the sort of prebiotic soup, as it's called.
How do you know that?
Well, we can make inferences based on reasonable guesses, but we haven't witnessed this, and we haven't.
There is a lot of research that has shed light into that. While it's still a hypothesis, it is a well-supported one. Christian Hillbilly. And I will cite the sources in the external and in the side chat.
So is that your argument, Christian? Just because we can't explain, you're doing a God of the Gaps argument, simply because you found a little bit of the process that we can't explain at the moment, therefore you're going to ignore the process that we can explain.
Did you hear yourself how silly that sounds? The little bits we can't explain?
Well, origin is a little bit.
My gosh, because guess what? We haven't even scratched the surface.
Christian,
a quick question, Stephen Rumpus. In the human structure, which evolved first? The skin or the nervous system? Oh, wait a minute. How about the respiratory system or the circulatory system? Where's blood in this equation? Where did blood evolve? Because you know what? In order for us to be a living creature, we have to have all those at the same time.
Yeah, what makes you think they came about at the same time?
Yes, we are. And have you ever thought about...
Christian, what made you think...
Christian, a single egg, sperm that comes together, and then that produces a baby. That's a miracle right there, if you've never heard of one.
Christian,
so can you explain to me where the information came from?
I just explained how the information occurred. I explained the process.
Can you show me an example? I don't want it based on your belief. I want it based on your belief of thousands and millions of years.
Christian, let's just say for arguendo, let's say that we do not know where information originally came from, going back just 13.7 billion years ago. Information exists. Okay, where it came from, we may not know, let's say for sake of argument. But we know how it changes. And we know information changes because of speciation. And we know speciation can create different morphologies, different homologies. We know this. It's been observed. Okay?
We can see changes in dogs. I give you that. We can see changes in cats. We can see changes in cows. But guess what? You never see a cow give rise to a cat, do you?
Yes, Christian.
Because inside the genetic code, that God put into place, there are
so stupid.
Christian, do you know how dumb you sound when you think that evolution...
There are boundaries.
Listen to me. Do you know how dumb more than you usually do?
How stupid you sound, not even to be listening to the truth?
Okay, listen to me. I'm going to mute you, okay? Christian, listen very carefully, because you not only sound stupid, you sound astronomically stupid when you say that evolution claims that a dog can ever come from a cat. A cat population will always produce one type of thing, a cat. It'll always be a variation of a cat.
Holy Lord, I love it.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever arguing.
Okay, well, see, you're saying that there's a common ancestor. So all these common ancestors arose, like cats had a common ancestor, and that was cats?
Christian, to quickly answer what you were saying before about what came first, the skin and so on and so forth. Well, there's actually a good paper titled Evolution of the Heart from Bacteria to Man, because a creationist once posed that question to me about the heart's evolution and so forth.
Martis, I think you're just trying, you're presenting him with an impossibly difficult thing for him to do.
Yeah, I can't comprehend it. And I'm trying to make it simple.
I've comprehended this issue enough to stammer you, because again, the facts are the facts.
No, you have to.
Information come. You're saying that cats had a common ancestor, and that's cats. Wow, now you've got how all these different
Stop.
How all these different kinds come together and
Stop. I'm not going to let you straw man. That is not what I fucking said. Go back and watch the video. I did not say that cats.
What you said. You said cats had a common ancestor.
Hold on. I want to take this real quick.
No, you're not. Because if he could have claimed that I said something,
that's exactly what you said.
I am going to hide you from broadcast if you don't fucking stop. Okay?
You can turn his volume down, Steve, if you want to.
No, that is not what I said. What I said was a population of cats will always produce cats. That is not the same as saying that a population of cats did not come from a population at one time that was not cats, dumbass. Do you understand the difference? Don't put words in my mouth, because that's the worst fucking thing to do in my hangouts. Okay? Do you understand the difference?
Because when I asked you, I said cows don't produce cats. And they have common ancestors, and they're cats. You said that.
No.
Yes, Steve. Come on now, buddy.
That is not what I said, Christian. Listen to me carefully. Cats and cows share a common ancestor. That was neither a cat or a fucking cow.
Well, where's your evidence for that?
Phylogeny.
You know what? I can look at the same thing and tell you that don't work.
Well, you don't understand basic science.
The point is, where did the information come from? You've got inside these animals that produce a regular effect. And mutation does not help your cause.
We already said, regardless where the information came from, the information's here. We can show how the information changed. And that's
information only comes from an intelligent source. What is the source?
Why is that? Why do you claim that? Prove that.
Because
I just explained to you where
show me any example where information comes from a non-intelligent source.
I don't have to make your case. Prove it.
You're making the accusation that information is there
in the
genome and it just popped into existence. I'm making the accusation that information only comes from an intelligent source.
Yeah, prove it.
Oh, I will. Let me get a drink of water.
All right. So I mean, Christian Hillbilly is literally saying that he thinks evolution is dogs from cats.
Yeah, but it didn't. Yeah.
Okay, I linked a little video I did a while back about where dogs come from, because they don't seem to get it. We hear all this stuff about excuse me. Will a dog become a non-dog? And no, it won't. And before they were dogs, they were wolves.
Right.
And before they were wolves, they were members of the Amphicyonidae, and then they were Miacids, and then they were placentials, and so on and so forth. We go all the way down. Oh, dear.
But Christian needs to answer yes or no questions, and he has a hard time doing that.
Yeah. So a cat can only produce a cat, but a cat can have come from something other than a cat. Okay.
Yes.
That makes sense. You guys are fools.
So Christian, do you understand now that evolutionary biology does not teach that a dog can produce a cat and vice versa? Do you believe that?
I believe that's the way the creation story puts it. That's the way God's creation works.
No.
You're trying to say that we all come from
damn, you cannot answer a simple question.
Is that not the truth? Did you not say that we all come from the same common ancestor?
That is not what I said for the 15 millionth time. I believe that we have multiple common ancestors. Now, Christian, I'm going to ask you one more fucking time. Do you believe that evolutionary biology teaches it is possible for a population of dogs to have a population of cats? Yes or no?
I have no idea because I don't
There you
listen
go.
to evolutionary biology.
Thank you.
I'm asking you what you said earlier.
You're done. You're done. You're done. That's all I want. You're out of here.
That we all come from a common ancestor.
Bye, hillbilly. Bye.
Excuse me.
You're done. I mean, he's gone.
So cats can only produce cats, but it could have come from something other than a cat.
I'm not going to put up with dishonest people. Okay, it's not going to happen because he literally just said that he doesn't know whether evolution teaches this or not. Yet he's telling us what evolution teaches and what we believe. That is dishonest, and I'm not going to.
Okay, can you answer my question? All right.
Steve, I think you have to recognise he's stupid, and he's going to say make stupid accusations without realising they're stupid. I think you have to sort of pin him down. And think, for instance, things like the extra information we've got. We could have used an example of nanonays and things, right? Demonstrating where we've seen in the lab extra information is being added, and there were many ways we could have demonstrated him actual, real, physical examples of things he claims weren't happening, but.
Okay, I asked the question.
Answer your question, Isaiah. But I mean, I just want everybody to know why I kicked him because I'm not dealing with dishonest people.
I don't think he was deliberately dishonest. He's just a idiotic moron.
Well, no, he's deliberately dishonest. He has to be because for him to say he's telling us what we believe and he's telling us evolution biology, he just literally said he doesn't know whether evolution teaches or not. If asking from dogs.
He did say that.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously he's either trolling, stupid, or
stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, combination thereof. And I'm not. And then right there, you're done with me. I am not having any of this nonsense bullshit anymore, because these people have basically made a mockery of science, and I'm not going to sit there and let them troll us. Okay, whether they do it deliberately or not, it's not going to happen. So go ahead.
Well, can you answer what I said? Thanks. Really
what's your question, Josiah?
Okay, so cats can only produce cats, but yet a cat could have come from something other than a cat.
Correct. That's called a nested hierarchy.
Wow.
Yeah, but Josiah, before you get excited, we are also fish, just as we were discussing earlier. We are also fish.
Yeah, I'm not a fish.
Because our ancestor is a fish. So when Steve says that a cat can't produce a cat, ultimately down the line, because it's almost like there's a claydistic way of defining things, but it could look in millions of years' time, there could be something that doesn't look at all like a cat. It could even go into the water and become like a whale, in theory.
I don't know what any of you guys are talking about, but look, I will say this. You guys need to seriously repent of this foolishness.
Do you understand conceptually what we're talking about? Do you understand concepts?
No, not at all, because you know what? It sounds like foolishness.
No, it's called set theory. Do you know what set theory is?
Nope.
Okay. This is not really going to be completely accurate, but conceptually maybe you can understand it. If I start adding negative numbers together, let's say I start with negative 10, okay? So I have the set of negative numbers, and I start adding 1. I'm going to get negative 9, negative 8, negative 7, and I'm going to get up to 0 and then positive numbers, correct? You can follow that. You've had basic math, right?
I don't think he did follow that.
Did you follow that?
No, I sure didn't. I understand what you're saying.
He's a fucking idiot.
Wait, you did or didn't follow that? If I start with
why do I have to? You're a fool over here claiming that we're fish. So shut up with your disrespectfulness. Now finish
carefully. If I start with negative 10 and I add the number 1, okay, a positive value, it'll go to negative 9, and then it'll go to negative 8, then negative 7, negative 6, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, out being positive numbers. Is that correct?
Right.
Do you understand that conceptually?
Right, and I knew you were going to do all that. Right.
Okay. So if you understand that conceptually, then the positive set, by using that numbers, came out of the negative set. In other words, you have a negative set, and now you have a positive numbers. Can you ever have now a positive number in that a negative number in that positive set by adding 1?
Okay, I missed something.
Yeah, I think you're trying. I think you're beyond him,
stop.
Steve.
I know, Rumpus. Let me do this, okay? We all know we're dealing with people that have nominal educations. If I add a number, a positive number, do I get 1, 2, 3? I'm now in the positive realm. Do you agree with me?
Right.
Now, by adding 1, could I ever get a negative number again?
No.
Okay, same thing with cats and dogs. Once you have a population that becomes a cat, think of the population of non-cats as negative. The population of cats is positive. Once I have a population of cats, I can never have a non-population from it again, just like I can never have another non-negative number from a positive number. Do you understand conceptually now what a nested hierarchy is?
Okay, right. Okay, I see what you guys are saying.
I'm not quite sure you do.
I did. I guess I understand what you're saying. I still think it's all foolish, and I think you all need to repent of this foolishness.
Josiah, so when given, I know you won't be able to understand the jargon used and so forth in research papers, but when presented with research papers that do show you the evolution of, say, the cat, what would you have to say to that? Like, I was screen sharing to everyone, and I did link you in the side chat, and I will link it in the external if you can't see the side chat. What would you have to say when presented with actual research papers that show the evolution of cats or dogs or whatever have you?
He'll just deny they're right, aren't they? Because he's an idiot.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't even listening. What were you saying? I'm not an idiot. Watch your mouth, please.
You are an idiot. You are not.
Look, I'm sorry that your parents couldn't take the time to teach you how to be respectful, but let's learn some, all right?
Just ignore it.
All right.
So, when presented with actual research papers, like I was screen sharing to everyone, I linked it in the side chat, and I will link it in the external chat. When presented with these research papers, what would you do? Would you attempt to understand them and see the evolution of these different organisms?
Okay, all right. I'll say this because this is so rude. I was not paying attention. Say it again. I'm all ears, all ears.
Jesus.
Okay,
all ears.
This is the third time. When presented with research papers on, say, the cat, the dog, whatever the species you want, I know you won't be able to understand most of the jargon used as a lay person, but would you just try and understand it and then say, okay, this is evidence for this, the evolution of
Yeah,
this
I would read your paper. Yes, I would read it.
Good boy. So, wow. I've linked it in the side chat. That's not I'm just condescending, you are a boy. In the side chat, and I will put it in the external. And that I didn't know cat evolution, but literally 2 minutes Google search and I find a paper published in the National Academy of Sciences. It's really not hard when you know where to look. You go to these journals, actual academic work. And that's the power of science.
Yeah, because I mean, you got a long ways to go in your research, man. And the fact that, you know, when we have to explain something 3, 4, 5 times, yeah, I'm sorry, but it does show that you have a slightly diminished intellectual capacity compared to most
people. It's just I'm not listening. Just not listening the whole time. I'm doing other things while I'm talking.
Yeah, if you're not listening to what people are telling you.
If you're pretending to engage with someone and you're not, then that's very rude.
Right.
No, that's not what it is.
Yes, it is very rude. If you
it's not what I've been doing, though.
And pretend to engage and you're not, that's rude. Don't do it. Mute and say you're off away from the keyboard. Don't pretend to talk to someone and then not.
Yeah, you're very selective hearing when you ask for answers and people give them to
wanker. What a little wanker.
But anyways, I got to call this a day. So anyways,
more people need to be, you know, raised up correctly.
Yeah, you're one of them.
Rumpus, you need a bell.
No, you're an idiot and you're a moron and you're badly behaved and you've done this numerous times in Hangouts where you ignore what people are saying to you, pretend to be engaging, and then you say you don't listen. It's extremely rude.
This is actually the first Hangout I've actually revealing that.
No, you've done it all the